Welcome everybody to the Kid Casper podcast. I'm your gracious, beautiful, blessed, beloved, and black host, the kid they call Casper. The KID in Kid Casper stands for King of Development. I'm that menace with the melanin. Reject me as I am, as long as he is still relevant. First off, I wanted to say thank you for everybody that's tuning in right now. Had a little bit of craziness going on this week. For those that have, reached out to me personally, just wanted to say thank you for the thoughts and prayers. Thank you for some of the random dad jokes. Y'all felt compelled to just reach out and tell me because it's been a rough week for me. But nonetheless, we are here. I created this space in this episode to kind of shine a light on something I don't think is getting talked about enough. We already, y'all that are familiar with my platform and everything like that, y'all are familiar with the fact that I speak a lot about police brutality, hate crimes in the form of racism being inflicted on my community. But I feel like it would be irresponsible to not talk about the violence and the violence of hate crimes being weaponized and these things being used towards the Asian American community. How we have found ourselves in a place of division and how we both do not benefit if we stay divided. So with that being said, let me know where you guys are watching this from. I got a returning panelist. All I see is just ashy knuckles. You just had to go and have your ashy knuckles on screen. That's a terrible, terrible thing. And you should unmute your microphone too. Come on, brother. You making Black America look really bad right now. It's all right. I have my while he gets himself together, I got my new little sister Zara. I met her through TikTok. What's up, little sis? I think I didn't really necessarily get y'all governments except for my homegirl Maya. I met her through TikTok as well. And I got my new brother. We're just gonna call him Malaysian FMA. Somebody's got some weird feedback going on. But anyway, how you guys doing today? We talked a little bit on and off throughout the day. How you guys doing? We can, Well, don't rush to start first by telling us how your day was. My goodness.
Bro, that was a terrible intro.
Well, you know what, brother? All we saw was ashy knuckles and everything like that. It just didn't look good.
You were talking and then you just stopped. Like,
yeah, you'll be all right.
It's
okay. You know what? It's okay. This is my podcast. I can do what I want. Anyway, how are you guys doing today?
Great.
Anybody can go first.
No complaints over here. Pretty busy day, but I'm here. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I feel like this is a conversation that has been needed to be had for a while now. And I think, the fact that we're all kind of taking this chance. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a little nervous because this is the most any one of us, minus me and Nate, are going to engage in a dialogue, I would say. So we don't know how this could go. It could get awkward. People can get nasty in the comment section. That's why I'm so happy I got moderators. Who knows? But you know what? I think, we're all going to have fun tonight. Hopefully. If not, then we shall see. But basically, the reason I called you guys all here today, because in light of what's been happening recently, as far as this anti-Blackness, anti-Asian rhetoric that's spilling out of both communities. I talked to Zara about it for a good hour, I think it was Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And we were just trying to think of what can be done to kind of open the floor and having this dialogue. Like, what are the first steps? I think it's just what we're doing right now. But I think people need to understand how far back that this goes, because this thing, as far as this divide amongst our communities, this isn't new. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what you guys' thoughts were about that.
No, you're right.
No, it's definitely one that's been happening for a while, and it's one of those things where, depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers on why it's like that. Me personally, what I feel like a lot of times what happens is just the fact of not knowing and not understanding the other culture. One, plays a role in it, and then two, the simplest way to keep minorities down is to keep them separated. And so if you have Blacks against Hispanics or against Asians against Hispanics, and things like, if we're fighting amongst ourselves, the actual people who are putting in place all these laws and rules and things of that nature to keep us oppressed, they ain't got to do nothing. They can literally just sit back and allow us to just go at each other's neck, worrying about, oh, this community's getting that, we're not. This community's doing this, we're not. And they don't have to lift a finger. It's the easiest thing they can do to keep us oppressed is just allow us to continue to try and oppress another minority.
Right. I mean, like, we have to think about like who is really benefiting from this division, right? Because it's not the Black community, it's not the Asian community. We know who's benefiting from it, and to be honest, the system of white supremacy is so desperate to continue its like stranglehold, and we're all just like under here trying to like figure out, trying to like have this like slightest edge over each other. And we really have to think about like the history of like how this has been happening for so long. I mean, even like with the model minority myth, we all know like how it was established to really pit all of us against each other, right? Like how well, like, if Asians can do it, what's wrong with y'all? Like, why can't y'all do it? Obviously there's no racism, obviously there's no oppression because Asians could do it, when we all know that's not true.
I want to say an analogy that I was told as a young kid. This was towards something else, but we're all drowning at the end of the day. Whether or not one community is drowning in 10 feet of water or the other is drowning in 50 feet of water, we are all still drowning. And it feels like we want to compare our incidents to each other, which it's not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm. This is not the oppression Olympics, right? Like, we know, like, we are all victims of oppression. And like, I hate to say it in that way because I hate to like victimize ourselves, because we're victims, we're also like not victims, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we are capable of fighting against it. But at the end of the day, like, we're all kind of in the same boat, like, regardless of whether this is happening to the Black community, this is happening to the Asian community, like, it's all the same but different.
Well, I want to talk about how we often go at each other's necks. And when I say we, I'm saying different communities. You can find this in the comments of multiple outlets, whether it's an Asian outlet or whether it's a Black outlet. And I really want to look into that because I feel like everyone on this call here is kind of on the same side, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look out into the world, then you're going to see a completely different thing. And I think that that's where a lot of the strife lies. I can name them, or can I? I'll start with the Black side. The Shade Room, Baller Alert, anytime anything happens regarding an Asian person, you will see in the thousands comments that are racist. I can say on here or not, but racist as hell towards Asians. And at the same time, if you look at Neck Shark or Rice Feed or Asians with Attitude or any of those on Instagram, if you look in
there's something called Rice Feed.
Oh yeah, like be involved with I'm involved with both because I'm Malaysian. I'm Black and Filipino.
What the hell?
I'm in both. Yeah, I mean that's that's the name. It's great. They do a lot of good work, and I never fault the outlets or the writers unless they actually do something. But it's always in the comments, and you see a lot of ugliness in the comments. So I want to wrap my point up by saying, our communities don't see each other. We see what Hollywood white media has, or even just media in general, has said that we are to each other. For example, white Hollywood media writer decides in the 90s, and throughout cinematic history, as a matter of fact, as they erase Asians from their own stories, I'm going to make Mickey Rooney play a Japanese man with oversized buck teeth and taking hot baths all day in Breakfast and Tiffany's, and then that image is ingrained in everyone's idea of what an Asian is. Countless I know I'm taking up a lot of time. I'm sorry. Countless examples.
You're good, brother.
Of what that looks like, of what quote Asian people look like to everybody else, including the Black community, and then we come up with stereotypes that way. At the same time, Hollywood white writer is watching the 6 p.m. news and sees yet another black person on the news for doing whatever thing that they're saying black people do today, then everybody else in the world, including Asians, sees that. So that when we start going at each other in the comments, it devolves into nothing but this stereotype battle when there are brown Asians. I'm sure that some of the people on this panel would look at our two Asian folks on the panel, and then I need to self-correct. I'm Asian as well, but you wouldn't look at me and assume Asian, right? And then, for Asian folks that watch a lot of stuff, whether it's Tyler Perry stuff or whether it's something good, catch the shade, they might think, oh, black people love Jesus. Like, not all of us. Like, some of us do, and black people love this, and they're all like, no. So I've taken a lot of time. I want to say that we don't see each other as who we are, because both are not a monolith, and we need to see each other a lot better.
And you know what? Let's do this. So once again, this is where all of us are kind of talking for the first time. So I'm gonna kind of introduce my brother, because I don't know if he can handle introducing himself. But I got my brother. Yeah, I said that. I got my brother Nate. He's been in the military for what, 13 years, if I'm not mistaken.
11,
and he drives a better car than I drive. That's completely besides the point. He's got two beautiful black children. I met him through my church, and fellow activist, graphic designer. So just wanted to introduce him real quick. Why don't you tell America hi real quick, brother?
Hey, what's up, America?
And we talk about this stuff in length, as far as trying to get the knees off our necks as a people and everything like that. And I thought, who else to have this conversation about bridging gaps than somebody that I know can hold a intelligent conversation in the state of Maryland, because there's not a lot of them. But anyway, and let me see. So I met brother Blasian through TikTok as well. Why don't you go ahead and give a little intro of yourself, brother?
Hey, I'm Blasian FMA, he, him pronouns, also known as Jonathan to those who know me, or Jay. I have been doing this work of talking about intersectionality of being a Filipino black person, or a black Filipino, or just a Blasian, for going on 13 or 14 years now on YouTube. So I am an OG YouTuber. I also have created on Facebook multiple places where people who are Blasian can just figure out more about themselves and talk amongst other Blasians. And most recently created the Black and Asian Alliance Network on Facebook last year, after we saw a rise in COVID related hate crimes against Asians, as well as the killing of George Floyd. I created that space, and it grew to 3,000 members in 1 week, and we're steadily growing now to 4,000 members as we continue to have these types of conversations. And I see a lot of you in the chat right now, so thank you for coming.
That's what's up. Sister Zara, Sister Mai, either one of y'all can go first.
Go ahead, girl.
Oh, me? Okay. My name is Sarah. I guess I go by Zara. I met
Sorry.
through TikTok. I guess you could say how I got discovered on TikTok. Not how I planned at all. It was really through crying because some asshole screwed me over. So that was fun.
Oh, great. So maybe I should have led with that. Anyway, so I found Sarah. Is that what your name is on? Because I don't think we've corrected each other and pronouncing each other's names or whatnot. But my fiery little sister over here, I was watching a couple of her clips and whatnot. I was like, ooh, she looked like she got a couple of gems, and she's super fiery in such a small package. Not assuming that she's short or anything like that,
no,
but I just figured it would be okay.
I'm
good.
4'10".
I feel better about myself then. You said 4'10"?
Yeah, I can qualify for a handicap sticker.
Oh, yes, you can, but that's all right. It's okay. And then I also got my sister Mai here. She was dropping a lot of historical gems on TikTok. Like I said, this is good for me not having a lot of representation in my life. So go ahead and introduce yourself, my sister.
Yeah, I'm Mai. I am not really a historian at all. I am actually a board certified music therapist. So that's what I do. I do a lot of work with children and adults with disabilities, and people with substance use disorder and in mental health treatment. I started TikTok like a couple months ago, and I've just always been super interested in learning more about my own history. I grew up in like a super white area, so I was never super very connected with my heritage. I'm Japanese American, or was always struggled with being Asian, growing up in a mostly white space. So yeah, just want to start embracing more of my Asianness and embrace more of my heritage. So here we are.
That's what's up. Anyway, I'm happy to have you guys. I was like I said, this could have went left real fast. I don't know if you guys have had the same conversations I've had, but there's a huge amount of hostility in both communities, I would say. You know, just from me having the conversations, I'm like, guys, it doesn't matter who, you know, who said what first. Let's stop keeping score and being petty with this mess. But people are outraged, people are angry, people are obviously upset. Me being, you know, I want everybody to love everybody. I want everybody to kind of just, I'm at this point in my life, you know, before Jesus wrecked my life. Now I'm at this point where I'm like, can we all just get along? People don't really want to hear that though. They want to get to the nitty gritty and they want to have these tough conversations, in which we're going to have today. So I guess for me, the one thing that made me notice that there was, I guess, just speaking in my own experience, there was this like anti-Asian like narrative that was coming out of, just from like what I've seen as far as conversations, was the minute something, I guess, like media wise was starting to happen to you guys, as far as the Asian community goes, Black people are like, oh, so y'all done fighting for us then? And it's like, what? I'm over here like, what is it? They're fighting for their people. What does that matter? And then, you know, there's been a little bit of chatter where it's just like, oh, one of the victims that got brutalized happened to be by the assailant that looked like me and looked like my brother Nate. So then they're like, oh, so they're going to go and do this to us after we just fought for their lives all summer. This is that and the third. And here we are. It's a shitstorm. I don't usually cuss on my podcast, but guess what? It's a shitstorm. It's just pretty bad. It's bad because everybody's kind of has a hot head. I'm in this now where I'm like, I don't want to be right. I want to be reconciled. I'm not about hate on any side, honestly, because if you're participating in it, you might as well sentence somebody to death at this point. And I just think it's disgusting. When was it that, I guess, like, you guys noticed that it was like at an all-time high amongst communities at this point?
Well, can I ask a clarifying question before we? Who exactly was saying what in that analysis, or in that your experience? You said they're fighting for us, and now they're done fighting for us.
It's just some chatter I've seen through TikTok, like a couple of people's rebuttals to why doesn't the Black community denounce like this assailant that like came and attacked our community. And then I've seen a couple of TikTokers, they'll be like, okay, so y'all finally started fighting for us after 7 years of BLM being a thing. It's just nonsense. It's a lot of finger pointing, keeping score. In my opinion, it's not necessary. It's being more divisive than actually getting to the, you know, the issue at hand, which is we just need to have this conversation. I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, from like, if you look at the history, I was actually doing a ton of research before this because I'm starting a new series on TikTok about the history of Black and Asian American solidarity. And if you look like the Black community and the Asian community throughout history have had each other's backs. Like there's so many people from each community that stood up for each other. Like Bayard Rustin was like one of the people that stood up for Southeast Asian refugees and was like, this is a humanitarian crisis. Like these are people that need help. And conversely, like people like Yuri Kochiyama or like Grace Fox, these are all women who stood up with the Black community, especially in the 50s and 60s. So we do have a really long history of solidarity with each other, but we also have a long history of like just fighting each other and being at each other's necks. So it's just so interesting. I feel like sometimes we forget that we're in the same struggle and that we do at least I think the majority of us have each other's backs. It's just so hard, especially now.
I want to add on to that point that if we want to do like just a really quick timeline of like, and I'm talking about TLDR, you know, the origin of our communities being together is on a positive note, and it's civil rights. It's Asians marching next to Black people for civil rights, and very specifically the Immigration Act of 1965, which demanded that the borders be open. And this is very much paraphrasing. I don't know the exact law, but basically open the door for people to come into this country, including my own family on my Filipino side, right? So somewhere between the end of World War II, which was what 1945 around then, and then civil rights, which picked up after that, they and you know who I'm talking about, were working hard to divide the communities, and we hinted at it earlier with the model minority myth. Basically, another TLDR, and I think someone actually explained it pretty well, but I'll say it again for the new viewers. If you're just joining us, is saying, oh, these people are doing so well, meaning Asian folks are doing so well. Why can't the rest of y'all do just as good? And when you do that, you don't even need to be talking about race. If you come from a family with a lot of siblings and they say, well, your older brother did this and became a doctor and did all of that, why are you a music therapist now? Like, I'm sure that you have probably heard something like that. I'm not picking on which I just realized we follow each other on TikTok. Hey girl, hey. You know, that it breeds that same kind of feeling and that same kind of ire. Now magnify that, and that's how we got to where we are in terms of being at each other's throats in the comments and not seeing each other.
Yeah,
you know, go ahead.
So real quick, I just wanted to introduce my sister from another member from my community. My sister, how do you pronounce it? Juliana, is that correct, my sister? Can you hear us over there just fine? I think you're muted too. Let's try unmute your mic real quick.
Hello?
There we go. All right, cool.
Okay,
you were a little late, so you know, we're just kind of introducing you and kind of putting you on blast for showing up late, but everything's okay.
CP time.
Yeah, we're
Sorry
all good.
I was late.
No, you were fine. You're perfectly fine. I'm just giving you a hard time. You were finishing up schoolwork, but it's funny that you said your name is John, if I'm not mistaken, my brother. You said John, correct?
Who, me, Jonathan?
Jonathan, I'll call you Jonathan then. My bad. I always get annoyed when I hear people say you need to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, because as Martin Luther King said, you know, it's hard to pull yourself up by the bootstraps if you ain't never been given any boots. And I think in a lot of occasions where it's like we're trying to get our boots, but we're not even given the opportunity to pull our boots up once we finally get our boots, because we're old and tired, we're wrinkly and we're raggedy, and there's one way that we've always kind of talked about amongst me and my brother. It's like it takes us so long to get to the race, to compete in a fair race of life, that we may not even make it to the race because of the things that are put in front of us to compete in said race.
Okay, so I don't know the answer to this question, but I want to throw this out since you mentioned that, because one thing that I do notice missing from here is anybody that's opposed to any of us on this call, but I have hung out in those spaces where those people exist. So I'm going to bring this point up, and then I want to see how we respond. So for the people that say, you know, you quote that Martin Luther King quote and say that Black people have never been given any boots, I've seen this in a lot of male Asian spaces. And I like to see people, and I like to try to take a walk in their shoes if we're keeping the boots thing going. But I hear from a lot of them, well, my father came to this country with no money and started this business, and he just worked hard, which is completely different from Black people growing up in the hood and then making it or not making it. So how can all of these Asian people come over here and just keep their nose to the ground and work hard and then become millionaires? And you all can't do it, basically. And I'm the Black person in the space at that time, so it's like,
gotcha.
Well,
Okay.
So,
well, damn.
To touch on that, I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this not too long ago. So what a lot of people don't realize is the reason why Black people, especially in this country, have been oppressed so long is because, all right, let's say somebody from China or Japan or India, or you just pick a country, comes over to this country. Their embassies in their countries still keep, like, American society can't just be like, you know what, we're going to go out and we're just going to jack up all people who are Chinese. Because China's gonna pop up and say, like, nah, we're not rocking with that. Y'all gonna stop that. And their embassies will get in place. Jordan, do you know what country your ancestors are from?
No, and that's what's sad about being black in this country. They know we're from Africa.
My ancestors are from, so I can't go to an embassy and be like, hey, they're out here discriminating. Let's say I'm from Ghana, and I go to the Ghanese embassy and be like, they're discriminating against people from Ghana that are in this country. Speak up about it. Like, these type of things happen all the time where an embassy will actually step in. So, not to say that that's the only reason, but that's just one of the roadblocks that a lot of Black Americans have, is that our history and our culture has been stripped from us. So we don't even know where we're from. So if you don't know where you're from, how are you going to move forward? Whereas somebody who comes over from China and they come to, let's say, San Francisco or DC or something like that, there's already built-in Chinese community in those cities that are going to welcome them, embrace them, and be like, okay, you don't have anything right now. We're going to help you. Not many Black communities out there have that same type of mentality. It's a problem. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. But that's just, to answer your question directly, I think that's one thing that a lot of Black people don't have, as opposed to.
I don't want to be thorny or whatever, but I've never heard of that. And I also know that we were talking recently about San Diego and 80 something year old Filipino woman who got punched in the head on a trolley, or a Filipino man on the MTA here in New York who got Joker styled slit on his face. I don't think the Filipino embassy is going to step in any of these cases and say, oh, you're attacking our people, so we need to get you together right quick. There was a man in San Francisco and then later died. And that's been very big in the Asian community, in quotes, I say, and countless other things that are happening right now and have happened throughout history where no official organization stepped in from any other country to protect these people or do something like that. So I feel that way, and I also know that the people that I mentioned would also question what you've just said, but I don't have the receipts or the facts. I'm just questioning, like, I don't know that. I think a lot of these people are American citizens as well. Like, that's another thing that the Asian American community deals with, is like, where are you from? California? No, where are you really from? Like, I'm American. Like, that's what they say. And I'm sure that other people who wouldn't be mistaken for something else like me could probably attest to that.
Yeah,
no, I totally get that.
One of y'all.
I don't mean to call your bluff. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying that.
I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing that I want to mention is that, like, the majority of Asian Americans came here by choice. I mean, by choice meaning, like, even with refugees, like, we were able to come here and we weren't, like, forced to come here. So I do feel that is privilege within itself. As Americans, like, this was a choice for us to be here and to come here and to make a new life for us. And from my understanding, the majority of Black Americans did not have that privilege, and the history of Black Americans, that is not the case. So I do see how, but I also want to say that, you know, with being an Asian American, like, so many people, like, the immediate things that they think about is Chinese or Japanese or Korean, but we really forget about, like, the Southeast Asian refugees who came here with absolutely nothing. You know, like the Lao people, the Cambodian people, the Hmong people. These are all people that literally came here with absolutely nothing, and they tend to be ignored, especially within the model minority myth. Like some people in the comments have been saying here, like, these are the people, like, Southeast Asians have, well, Asian Americans in general have the biggest disparity in wealth, in education, like, out of all races. And I think that that's a really big issue, that we tend to focus on just, like, Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, when they are so many other, as Asian Americans, we are not a monolith.
And I think a lot of that goes back to the fact that because we had our history stolen from us. Like, I was just talking to one of my brothers and my sister last night, was when we were saying like we don't know our history, it's like, yeah, we're African American, but what part of Africa? Because there's some people there's like, oh, I found out I was African. I'm like, okay, cool. What percentage? They're like Africa. I'm like, there's other parts in Africa. Where in Africa? Africa. I'm like, ayo, that is trifling. That, and I think what's crazy about that is because we always look at Africa and it becomes dehumanizing in a sense where you are not allowed to like know where you come from. You are not allowed to know where your bloodline could trace you back to. And just like as somebody said before, how can we know where we're going if we don't even know where we started from? And I think that in itself is sad because, like my brother was saying, say something does happen to one of us in this country, we don't have people that are like overseeing us and like looking after us. We've had to get like the Black Panthers, we've had to get like the Nation of Islam, we've had to get like the Bloods and the Crips, we've had to have the neighborhood auntie that will whoop you for everybody down the street. Like we've had to put our own things in place that the government has never necessarily assisted us to do, and anything we try to build for ourselves has gotten destroyed essentially.
I think that's very important to note. Anything that Black Americans have tried to do has been like destroyed by state violence. It was surprising to a lot of people who tuned into HBO's Watchmen to learn that the Tulsa thing that happened in the opening of the first episode was actual history. That an entire town or city of Black people was destroyed and wiped off the map with fire bombs and state-sanctioned police and riots to kill Black people and destroy their businesses. While the same people, while other people say, "Well, my ancestors came here and started a laundromat or a restaurant, and why can't you do it?" Like because every time Black people try to do that.
Hold on real quick. I want you to keep going because I'm loving the gems you are dropping, but for some odd reason your mic sounds like T-Pain when you're speaking. I don't know what I don't know what it is. I'm over here like, dag, he's really saying something, and then every time it seems like you're like talking, it's like it's getting glitchy. Like even when you're moving a little bit over there, you're getting kind of. Is it any better now? I'm gonna have fun editing that out, but this
okay. Is better? Hello.
A little better, I guess.
What's that noise? You guys hear that?
You know, like a clock noise.
Yeah. What is
yes.
that?
I don't
That's
know.
not me.
I can't hear it, but I can't hear you.
I'm turning mine on. Is it me? Well,
it might be you, brother.
Back on at the same time, so I'll go off first.
That sounds crazy. I don't know. Yes, I thought it was my ear, but sorry, everybody in the YouTube section. I don't know what it is. But try just so we can kind of steer this along. And now my man John is completely frozen.
Wait, was he talking about the Tulsa race riot? Because I really could not hear him.
I don't know.
He was bringing that up.
He wasn't. I thought I heard him say that, but really could just been the bad connection.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't. Yeah, there you go. Wait.
You look like Nintendo 64 graphics.
I mean, I look fine in the let me see. In the room where we all are. On YouTube, I don't though.
I don't know. All right, we were cooking, so we can keep going. We know, the devil's just trying to slow down this conversation. That's fine. But if you could just say what you were gonna say before dial-up came for your life, real quick, brother. I really appreciate it.
Can you hear me though?
Kind of. I might have you dial in on your phone or something. I don't know. I can kind of hear you, brother.
Okay, well, I think I have lost my train of thought now, but basically mentioning that Tulsa happened, and anytime we try to get something, it's always taken away. So that's that.
Got it.
Yeah.
What on earth?
I just want to bring up, when I do talk about just the issues with the Asian and Black communities, one of the things that I hear a lot from Black people is that some resentment towards Asians for setting up shop in their neighborhoods and selling like unhealthy things like liquor stores and like blunt wrap and things like that. And that is one of the themes that I hear in my comments. And I don't know. I just want to bring that up. I'm curious about what you guys think about that.
Me personally, I think that's kind of it's almost a double-edged sword of sorts, because on one hand it's like, okay, I can understand somebody saying like, why are you opening up a liquor store or something like that in our communities? But then on the other hand, I'm like, well, if you weren't drinking liquor to the point where that's a profitable business, then they wouldn't open one up. They're going to open up a business that's going to make money. So if you don't want a liquor store in your community, well, maybe you should work on healing your community to the point where a liquor store isn't as profitable as, say, not to make a restaurant or something like that. So it's one of those things where I understand both sides of it. I don't think that Asian people who immigrate here come over here and say, you know what, I'm going to open up a liquor store in the hood because I just want to sell liquor to Black people. I don't think that's anywhere on their mind. I think they come, they look at the community that they're in, they say, this is going to be the most profitable, so this is what I'm going to do to provide my family a better opportunity in this country.
Can y'all hear me again? The whatever demon was on Jonathan's screen when it hopped on mine, and like I don't know what the heck was going on. It was going nuts over here. Y'all didn't hear that?
No.
Y'all didn't hear that? Man, it was something crazy. I don't know. But Nate, what you were saying, I thought that was really interesting, because I was looking back into like even like the certain type of loans we're allowed to get. That only scales us to, you know, shoot for certain stars, if that makes sense. Like you said, you were saying like, you know, some community, like the Asian communities, I doubt that when they came to America, they're like, you know what, I want to own this, I don't know, tiger shop, and I want to start it in the hood because I know them fools love Rellos, and I know they love getting them some $2 beers. I seriously doubt that's the case, but you know, when you think of how, I think people also think that redlining only affects the Black community, doesn't affect the Asian community. And you know, they're giving y'all, in some cases for you guys, as far as the Asian community goes, they're giving you guys better opportunity to get said businesses through loans, but they're gonna put y'all closer to us. You know what I'm saying? And that goes, and somebody said that same goes for beauty supply store. Okay, I'm not gonna touch that subject. I'm gonna let y'all lead in on that subject. But yeah, for sure, it's all by design. It's looking the way it looks because it's supposed to look this way, unfortunately. I think the one thing that is a bit concerning though, and maybe it's just me. First off, did anybody go to any protests last summer by chance?
Yeah,
yes, no.
I was supposed to meet up with some folks, but they didn't tell me they were going. And
are you throwing shade on the internet, brother?
I'm just saying.
It's too dark out to be throwing shade.
Found out on Instagram that they were there and nobody hit me, but
oh my God. You know what? Anyway, next time you want to go to DC, you could hop in my car instead of taking the funky old train. I'm asking serious questions. You out here starting division. Come on, man. What's wrong with you? To the other people on screen, did you guys happen to go to any of the protests last summer by chance?
I think I went to one or two. I got scared. There were so many people. And it was COVID.
I understand. But one thing I guess I can speak of, and Nate can kind of speak of, especially when we're talking in regards of the DC protests, I've never seen, first off, I'm so used to being the minority everywhere I go, but man, when I say there was so many white people at these doggone protests, but I did see a lot of my Asian brothers and sisters too. I think for them, they knew once it's stopped happening to us, or so much that the heat was taken off of us, it was going to start going on them in a sense. And it was beautiful to see, you know, all of us stand together and fight in solidarity. But I think what really breaks my heart is, like, you know, I don't have a lot of representation of Asians, but I met so many beautiful Asian people. And I'm talking about male and female. We're not picking in between the two. But I met so many beautiful people out there. And then these same people, they're kind of they're kind of like tense with other people. Like, I mean, I think I was talking to Zara about this earlier this week. I don't even know what to say to some of my Asian friends, unfortunately, with some of this stuff happening. But then I think I finally understand how other people feel when they talk to people that look like me, that look like my sister Juliana, or look like Nate. When something happens to one of us, they're kind of like, I'm sorry. I don't really know why I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. It's so this is new territory for me as well, because, you know, I came out the womb knowing that I was oppressed. I think this is the most that I can, in a lot of ways, and not that you guys have done anything wrong, but I think that this is where I kind of realized the most that we are a lot on the same level as far as Asian Americans and Black Americans.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously I can't speak for all Asian Americans, but from the people that were around me, a lot of people were in denial, really until COVID hit, and then all of that like kung flu, like anti-Asian rhetoric started. And I think that kind of jump started a lot of people like, you know, shoot, I forgot that we were also not seen as Americans. You know, the perpetual foreigner thing is very real for Asian Americans. So I at least I hope that more people understood that. What possible audio solution? Everyone mute for a second. I hope that maybe people understood that we are oppressed and that
it freaking worked. Oh, I was supposed to keep my mic muted. My bad. But that seemed to be the issue. So if everybody mutes when they're not talking, I think what it is just a lot of feedback. Possibly that might be an issue, but all good. Keep going, my sister.
No, I think that was it. I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think overall, just people didn't understand like how much like Asian Americans were oppressed, because we play into the model minority myth, because of all these things, because of this of us like be aligning with whiteness, so to speak, that it wasn't until COVID hit that we really understood, you know, that that's not the case.
Have you heard that there's
nope.
Sorry.
Go ahead, my sister. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Have you heard that there is a school in Washington that said they want to consider Asians to be part of the white community?
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's just it's like I think one of my friends told me this. Like, whiteness expands to fit its narrative, you know, like to fit like what whiteness is, and like changes its narrative. And that's just another example of that, even though like we know that that's not true. Like, I mean, on my TikToks, like every day, every time I talk about social justice issues, people always want to bring up like, oh, like what about Imperial Japan? Like what about China and the Muslims? Like what does that have to do with me, right? Like, that has nothing to do with me. Why don't people, when white people speak up about social justice, nobody says like, well, what about I'm
sorry, and you know what? I'm sorry. I gotta say this. What do white people have to complain about? Like, in all seriousness, other than a freaking election that got rigged, like that. I've never like walked out. I've never met one white person that said, you know what? Historically in my life, I have been white and I have been brutalized for being white, and everybody I know has the same story. It's statistically more times than none, and just from both of ours. Like, I just found out, like I said, I didn't see the movie first off, but I heard y'all hated Mulan. Oh my God, I heard so many terrible things about that movie, and a lot of that is the same things that we run into. Eurocentric beauty standards, where apparently they made Mulan like uber white and everything like that, and essentially the same thing that happens to us. We have this cute brown standard where if we're a certain shade of brown, we're deemed beautiful and everything like that. That's why, like, I think it's kind of ridiculous that even when we're just asking for equal rights, it sounds like the worst thing in the world. It shouldn't. Why? Because it's a humanity issue, but people don't view us as humans. you know, they view us as subhumans. And since this country's inception, unless you were a straight white man when this country was incepted, you were never deemed as a citizen the whole time. You know what I'm saying? 1865, when it came to African Americans, women couldn't vote. They still haven't done right by the Native Americans. I don't care what you say. But literally since this country's inception, we've never gotten a fair shake. And I mean across the board. I think where we're getting at, where it becomes divisive though, is, well, we've been feeling it worse. We're dealing with this right now. And me and Zara were talking the other day. It's like, does it matter if who was bleeding the longest? We're all bleeding at the end of the day. I think we need to acknowledge that first.
Yeah, I think one of the stupidest things that happens a lot of times in minorities is we'll literally fight over who's been oppressed more. And when that happens, you're literally taking the focus off of the actual oppression. And now you're saying, oh, we've been oppressed for this long, or this has happened to us, or this has happened to us. And it's like, okay, yes, that happened to you. Are you focusing on proving that you've been oppressed, or are you focusing on actually ending that oppression? Because you can't do both. You can't sit there and say, we've been oppressed the most, so we should get the most attention, and that be your rally cry, that be your fight song. Because what is that honestly going to do? Because all that's going to do, and what happens a lot of times, is you sit there and we've all been around somebody who all they do is complain, and no matter how valid their complaints are, if that's all you do, eventually you're going to start tuning that person out. Because it's like, I don't want to hear about your complaints. Yes, your life sucks, but you're not doing anything about it, so I don't want to hear about it anymore. And I think that happens a lot of time with a lot of discussions where it goes from, this is what we need to do to improve, this is where things are going bad, to just focusing on what went bad. Like when somebody says, I've been oppressed, it's like, no, I haven't been oppressed. Now the country tries to oppress people who look like me, but I'm not going to allow that label to be slapped on me. You're not going to tell me that I'm an oppressed person. You're trying to oppress me. There are things that are happening and things in place that are going to keep me from trying to do certain things, but that's not going to stop me. Because when you allow yourself to accept the fact that you're being oppressed, then you're allowing your oppressor to win.
But
But white people have been winning for,
go ahead, brother,
200 and something years now. So I don't think it's a matter of just not seeing the oppression end, saying, you like just saying that it's not going to work on me. I think that there is oppression happening and has been happening in this country. But I do want to go back to also, is this better? This is on the phone. I want to, oh gosh, what was I going to say? That was my reaction to what my brother here just said. But I did want to go back into saying, when you brought up Mulan, that is a much more complex situation than just a talk on colorism, which happens on both sides.
Oh, I know. I only know surface level. I'm not an expert
I
in
also
this
only know surface level in terms of what it was about, but I'm leading into a greater point here that one of the main issues was that the main actress on Mulan said something in support of or not in support of, but rather in what is the opposite of support, y'all? My brain is dying. Opposition to the Hong Kong protesters. And if you know anything about the situation over there, then you know that a lot of people that believe in democracy, et cetera, and just like being free, are fighting for their democracy in Hong Kong. And that China, or at least the government, and this is where it gets dodgy for me because I don't want to offend anybody, but I know it's a very, very hot topic, is like, no, you're going to be a part of China, so that's that. And basically it looks to the world like they're taking away their freedom. And so the main actress in Mulan was like, haha, like making fun of the protesters, like China's going to come and get you. I don't know exactly what she said, but she was getting canceled over it. And everybody in the world was like, wow, this is trash. Boycott Mulan. Well, like I said, maybe someone else can speak in more depth about it, but that's what that is. The twist here is that you would think that the people that are protesting for the democracy and all of that would be on the same side as us over here in the United States, which I'm saying that ironically, but it really turns out that apparently, and again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, those people are not the anti-Trump people. and they don't like Black Lives Matter. And so it's the people, and then there are people who are pro-Trump, and I'm like, girl, how can we be like fighting for freedom, but not here for Black Lives Matter and here for Trump? That's weird to me.
Yeah, one thing that I want to say, I kind of want to go back to the point of like where you're saying, you know, I'm not gonna acknowledge that, or like I don't want to say that I'm oppressed, because it's as an Asian American, one of the things that like I feel I really have to advocate for is that like, yeah, like people do not see me as white, even though it's like as much as like people want to say like how much privilege we have as Asians, and especially as an Asian woman, this is something that like is a huge issue that I see. Not only do we experience, you know, like oppression, but we also experience misogyny, not just from, I mean, not like from our own communities, men, but also from like other men outside of our community. You know, and like, that intersectionality I think is really important. And I don't want to like harp on like be like, oh, I'm a victim, and I'm a victim of oppression, but like I feel like I'm constantly having to advocate and say like, hey, like see me, like see what's happening and see these things. Like why do you not see like me as like as I know that you see? Why do you deny that you see me as I know you see me? If that makes sense.
No, so let me clarify what I was
saying.
Hold
on real quick, brother. So Z over here with the hot hand. I was just about to message her. She looked like she had something to say to kind of add on to Mai's point. Go ahead, my sister.
Sorry,
you're unmuted.
I was going to say something, especially as an Asian female. I don't know if you have experienced it yourself, but I do think as well, just a person of color, I think we've all dealt with some sort of fetishization. I know I've recently just got done with a whole ordeal that had to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, like this is a big problem. All women know. All of us as women understand this issue. I mean, especially as a woman of color, of this issue with fetishization, and then I guess like misogyny from men in our cultures, in our groups, that say like, oh, well, you have it so easy because look, like you just like men love you, and like you have everything so easy because men love you. But nobody understands how dangerous that is for women of color, like how dangerous, how we are so much more susceptible to rape, to sexual harassment, to other like sexual crimes like that. And I just feel that this is like a big issue that I want to bring to light as women of color.
Sister G, you got anything for me? You're real quiet over there.
Oh, me?
Yeah, okay, you over there, come
on. As me being Blasian and Hispanic, I never experienced as people call me like Asian type of experience, but lots of people don't even believe that I am Asian, and they'll be always so shocked. And I really hate it when people are like that. Like with being a mixed person, I don't like when people are like, oh my gosh, I'm actually Puerto Rican. Oh my gosh, you're actually Filipino. And I hate it when it's like that. And as a question for everyone, do you guys think there's more racist after the George Floyd? Or do you think all that happened, there's always lots of racists, but hidden behind cameras?
They were hidden.
Yeah.
They were so hidden. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
One at a time, melanated folk. One at a time. So everybody got quiet after I said one at a time. Who's going to talk? My goodness.
Okay, so I think what a lot of it, and I think it might have been Will Smith. I don't want to quote the brother, but he basically said what happened with the George Floyd thing, things like that have been happening for decades. It's just now with camera phones and things like that, they're being filmed and they're actually getting out. Like that's nothing new. Like if you talk to any minority really, and you just talk about, not to take this to a police discussion, but you just talk about the interaction between police and minorities. That has always been a thing. That has always been an issue, that minorities are policed completely different. The system was never built with minorities in mind, and it's just now that it's being filmed and it's getting out that it's happening. And not to drag it, but just to go back, when I said that I don't see myself as oppressed, it's not because I don't see oppression. I'm not dumb.
I'm about to say, because you darker than me, brother.
Right.
Well, I know you going through it out here. Shoot.
Yeah, like I've dealt with it. I still deal with it. What I was saying is the mentality of being oppressed is something that I don't allow myself to fall into. And so, and I see that a lot of times with people where they'll allow the fact that they're being oppressed to become their identity. And that is not something that I try to do, to just be first and foremost an oppressed Black man. No, I'm just a Black man who happens to be oppressed, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it like you didn't understand that. I understand that.
I think the one thing that that we all kind of forget is that I don't think minorities are surprised about the crap that's happening in this country right now. Like, I think everybody, when they saw January 6th, they were just like, we knew this was gonna happen. I remember texting Nate. I was like, "You all right?" Because my brother works in like the DC area. I'm like, "Hey yo, you good? I know these hillbillies are tripping. It smells like hot powdered mayonnaise up there. You okay? All right, cool." But when we saw like George Floyd, unfortunately, like something like that was bound to happen because the way that this direction was going. Do I think racism got worse? No, because it's always been there. You know what I mean? I just think what happened is I think racist people realize that racism really is a bad thing. And I think for a lot of white people in general, they had to come to the resolution that, oh, snap, I got a little bit of racism in me myself. It's kind of like when you go to the doctors and you don't know you got something wrong with your body until you get checked out or you get a sickness thrown in front of you where that makes you consider, does any of that reside in my heart by chance? Does any of this bias reside in me? I think a lot of us had to go through that after George Floyd. But do I think that it's worse? No, I think it's just manifested because a lot of people feel emboldened. I mean, like they feel bold enough to go inside of a government building to fight for a fair election. I don't know. I think it's different for everybody, but for me personally, somebody that's been in the streets consistently with activism, I don't think it's gotten worse. I just think that they're just taking shifts with each other, like first shift, second shift, and third shift. That's basically what's happening right now.
One thing that I will say, and when I say it, a lot of people look at me funny. I'm actually happy that Trump became president, for the simple fact that because when he became president and the things he started doing, all these under the rock and undercover racists felt emboldened to come out and just be blatant with it. And once that gets out, it's like you can't tuck that back in. So all these people, when Trump was in office and they were thinking he's going to win the election over again, be another 4 years of them just letting their true colors show, I'm happy for that, because personally, there are a lot of people that used to be in my life that when he became president and they started acting, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's how you really feel on the inside. You've just been faking it this whole time because it wasn't politically correct. But now that the president is out here saying these same things, you feel emboldened and comfortable enough to come out and be like, yeah, like Black people are lazy, Asians are this, Hispanics are this. So I'm glad that that presidency happened, because I think that, and that's what I think is happening now, is that all those people came out and people got a slap in the face, and the realization is like, oh wow, America is still a really racist country. It's just people were really good at hiding it.
Well, America's really not that old either. Like, we're a pretty young country when you think about it. Like, a lot of these countries are vastly, centuries-wise, a lot older than us. America is only about 400 years old. Not even like about 300. Matter of fact, 1776. Yeah, we're not that old of a country. So to think that the same ideologies that birthed this country are still not, woven into what we do today is farce by lease. I don't know if that answered your question, Sister G, but I don't if that did answer your question at all.
Yes, it did. And another thing is about what's your name?
Talk about me or
The other
talking
guy
about?
that was,
Oh,
yeah,
Nate.
What, say it again?
Nate.
Mate?
Nate.
Like Nate
Okay.
Dogg with an N.
Okay, I definitely understand what you mean, because every single time something bad happens, something good will come up. And I definitely understand how you mean, just like how there was a saying, every time there's a storm, a rainbow will come up. And I definitely understand how you mean, because of that Trump problem and with the crazy protesting and all. Now we all get to show how we feel, if that makes sense. Because all before of that, we were all quiet and trying to be as good as we can. But now these times, we can actually see, you know how like in the olden days, we were not treated the same. Just like how from olden days in the 60s, it was always just white school, then black school. But now these days, we are treated exactly the same. We could pull out our guns. We could do whatever we want to. And I think that's what I agree. And especially in summer with the protesting, it's a good start for now Asians and white people to join together with our protesting. And I experienced exactly the same, because when I was protesting in summer, and there was actually more white people than our people. That was interesting. But have you guys experienced that too?
I think what it is, and like it goes back to like us being the minority. I think it's just because they had to wake up. There was a switch that went off in a lot of Americans' heads and eyes and hearts, that you were either outraged by what happened with George Floyd or you were just complicit as always. So I think that's why we had such the big turnout. Brother Jonathan, you look like you got something burning on your heart, brother. You're unmuted.
Yeah. There's something burning there. I don't know what it is, but it is leading into a conversation, because like you, I when my problems on the whatever happened on the computer were coming up, when you were talking, asked the question who had gone to a protest. I actually did go to, I guess, the first protest here in New York. It happened in Brooklyn. I got arrested that night. And I, even after I got out, I went to many, many more marches, including ones that were Black people for Asian folks. So that was very interesting. But
see that
I did notice,
I did not know that there was you said there was a Black people for Asian folks protest.
I'm sorry, Asians for Black people. That makes it a whole other different thing.
You're fine, but go ahead.
But yeah, that would have been something too. Actually, that one is coming up this weekend, as a matter of fact, for Christian Hall. So anyway, yes, I noticed a lot of white people at the protest. I also am involved in a very largely white queer organization. And so I've seen how white people perform their allyship in the true sense of the word. You look at the corporations from 2020 after the George Floyd protest kicked off and everything was hitting the fan. Everybody and their mama was trying to let you know that they are on the side of Black Lives Matter, because at that time, when it had gained so much traction, despite Black Lives Matter having been around for 6 years, you know, and 1 year ago, before George Floyd, they were when you brought up Black Lives Matter, you were talking about it as if it debating whether it was a terrorist organization or not. If you forget, before George Floyd, anytime you talk about Black Lives Matter, people were like, "Oh, that's a terrorist organization." But as soon as George Floyd happened, it was such an injustice. It was so blatant and in your face, as if other videos had not been blatant in your face. Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, the guy who got shot in the passenger seat, too many to name. They were debating whether it was a terrorist organization or not. But when George Floyd happened, what it was, however many minutes video it was, then everybody saw. So then all the corporations, including Gushers and Fruit by the Foot, decided to say that Black Lives Matter. And that was a time in our history that you had to choose, especially in the Trump era. Are you for this or are you for this? And so that's why you started seeing so many white people. Now, where does the action go from there? All you have to do is carry a Black American flag and march one time, and then you can tell all of your friends. And then you can tell all of your friends that you are now Black Lives Matter. You post a black square on social media and suddenly you quote done the work. I don't think so. So I'm saying all of that to say that this is why we saw so many people at the place, and they're not just white people either. And that goes into going back into this whole thing. Now, don't forget, I am Filipino as well as I am Black, so I can call a thing a thing. And someone in the comments mentioned earlier that the model minority myth is a double-edged sword, because just as we know that white America created that myth to say you are better, these people did this thing, and why can't you do it? There are people who play into it. There are people who play into the model minority myth. There are Asians who play into it, so they align with whiteness, and then they eventually they and their friends become just as clueless as white people, so that when a George Floyd happens, oh, they've got to take up the banner too, and they got to make sure that they know that that they're on their side, but they are just as clueless as other people. And so that is only one slice of the pie that we have to call out. And I know nobody on this call is like that, but I'm sure that we all
I hope
do know.
not.
Like
you're getting blocked so fast.
I mean, I've decided not to block people from that, but just like Nate said,
I gotta protect my mental health, brother.
It is one of those things. It is one of those things, like Nate said, it is one of those things that made me, it allows you to see who is actually down for the cause and who is here to just post black squares. I'll mute myself now.
Nah, you good, brother. I might have to actually get your phone number after all of this. I like how you talk. You all right. He can get a plate, Nate, even though he already at the barbecue. He can get a plate.
Child, I'm cooking at the barbecue, first of all. All right.
You can cook. Oh, and you can cook. Just don't put, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, if
please,
he ain't got
nobody.
if he ain't got the sandals on, he can't be at the grill. That's all.
Yeah, you gotta. Matter of fact, brother, I'm in flop mode right now. What you talking about? Anyway, so this is a question I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, I guess. And I think we all can relate to this because I'm just now learning a lot of this, but Maya, I think you touched base on it when you were talking about anti-Blackness growing up as an Asian American, where if you guys were too dark, you were considered ugly or dirty. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, colorism is a huge issue in Asian culture. I mean, in Asian cultures. And one story that I told on TikTok that, oh my gosh, my dog is behind. One story that I told on TikTok is when I was growing up, my mom would be like, oh my gosh, you're getting so tan. Like, oh, it's so dirty. You look so dirty. Like, she was so like anguished about it, you know? And that's just like one example of how colorism is so deeply entrenched in our history. And that kind of goes like way, way back. The common story that's told is that typically the rich people would stay inside. So they were a lot paler than the people who were outside working in the fields and like trying to make a living outside. So that's where a lot of people like to say it stems from. But like we see it in like the caste system in India, we see it in Japan, we see it in all Asian countries, and that upholds white supremacy, right? And it's not like I don't know, like I don't want to say that like white supremacy created colorism because it's been inherently part of our culture for a really long time.
But didn't it?
No, I would say no. I would say that colorism developed like independently, but it still upholds white supremacy and the values of white supremacy.
Right. I want to add to what Mai said, that white supremacy, when you get into talking about what Mai just said, like a lot of people get lost in the woods and they think white supremacy as in white American supremacy. No, whiteness. This side of my palm and not this one. And y'all might make a joke because I have orange lighting, so it's almost the same color. But I'm talking about
you're good,
white.
Brother, you're fine.
So yes, like she said, you know, the farmers, naturally they were outside and they turned brown. So it's like, oh, you're a poor farmer. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They have stuff called Fair and Lovely. They've got soaps that turn you white. Okay, so, and that's to this day. So, you know, it's a thing. And, you know, being Black and Asian, I'm in both circles. And so they're like, oh, you don't know. Black people will be like, what are Asians talking about colorism? They don't know nothing about child. It has been going on. Parasols, Fair and Lovely, the Filipino media. Why are all the news and actor people on Filipino TV white as hell? But then all of the reporting on poor people is all the brown Filipinos. So I just wanted to add that on to what she was saying.
Yeah, I also want to add, you know, like colonial mentality, especially in countries that were colonized, is a very, very real thing. There's been research done on colonial mentality in India, colonial mentality in the Philippines, of how these standards of whiteness have been pushed onto the native people there, and therefore, that's why like skin whitening is so popular. That's like one example of a byproduct of colonial mentality, where people see the oppressor's culture, the colonizer's culture, as superior to one's own. And it's sad, but it's like it's so ingrained, you know. It's just like it like the chicken or the egg, you know, like what really came first? Like, did colorism come first, or did white supremacy come first? You know, like where does it all stem? It's all very convoluted.
I think the one thing that is sad is that people think that's a freaking compliment. I was just talking to my brothers and my sisters are in the chat, but I get really annoyed, and my brother Nate is guilty for this, matter of fact. So let me snitch on him real quick. We, you know, this whole like team light skin, team dark skin thing, you know what I'm saying? Like I hate when people say like I have good hair or I have a cute tint of brown for skin. And my rebuttal nowadays is when somebody says, "Oh, you're a cute shade of brown." I'm like, "Oh, I'm a pretty slave. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that." And then they're shook afterwards. They're like, "Well, that's not what I said." I'm like, "Yes, you did. You literally just said I'm a cute slave." Because anybody darker than me is ugly. Like I don't appreciate that at all. And I think what the issue is that I hate that phrase. Don't get me started. Like it's kind of whack how when I say like colorism and everything like that, everything that they've like made like these like beauty standards, and we do it for ourselves. We've adopted some of these cultures in ourselves. We get in this whole, oh well, if you're light skinned, then you don't know what hard work is like. You ain't never had nobody be mean to you in your life. So let's just invalidate everything that you do or everything that you might go through in your experience because you're a lighter shade of brown. But then I guess it kind of goes back to you guys, because as you just explained, if you're a little darker than, well, I think maybe you just have bad lighting. So I don't know if you're really darker than Sarah or not. But like, say if like one of you guys is darker than the other, somebody's going to assume in your culture that you don't really know what bullying is like or oppression is like simply because of the color of your skin. And I think that's whack in itself, because I think now going back to us as like as people, I feel like, and like I said, this is just stuff I've seen on the internet and I've seen it from my community, especially Asians don't really know what oppression is like because they don't have the pigmentation as us. So how could they ever really truly understand what it's like to be us? And me, because I like to interject and go on anybody's temple and flip tables, I like to say, what the heck does that matter? I know Asian people that are darker than me. And the fact that they're getting freaking brutalized because, you know, freaking, I'm so happy Donald Trump is gone. I'm not happy that Joe Biden won. I'm just happy that Donald Trump lost. But I definitely noticed for you guys, and I didn't even take anything actually happening to Asian people to know this is going to happen, because I've seen it in history. Nate, Ebola. You remember when Ebola was a thing in America? Black people were getting brutalized. Swine flu. Hispanic Americans were getting brutalized. I knew the minute when it got to coronavirus and where it originated from, I knew that there was going to be this unnecessary hatred. Well, I mean, all hatred is unnecessary, but I know that the heat got turned up on you guys. And I think we keep getting caught up in this whole, oh, well, my boo-boo hurts more than your boo-boo. That does not invalidate the fact that you guys are hurting at the end of the day. And it breaks my heart. Like, you know, because I do talk very briefly, because me and Sarah are terrible at texting. But like, just from the few people I have talked to, I know that this stuff is really heartbreaking for you guys. And to think that just because, and I say this, and I'm not speaking up for all Black Americans at you know, we do not own the monopoly to oppression. Do you know what that means? Like, I get that we go through our own type of persecution and turbulence and everything like that, but we don't own. Why do you want to own the monopoly of what oppression feels like? Like, they'll never know what it's like to have PTSD. Why do you want to be alone in this? I feel like at this time, I feel like we need to cling on to each other more than ever, because who's going to understand it than each other?
Okay, I don't think that when those, well, I can't speak for all of the conversations that happen, but I don't think Black people are out here bringing up the fact that they have been oppressed since the foundation of this country.
There are some, though. There are. I'm not trying to radicalize anybody's speech, but I have seen it where they will minimize I guess like the experience as a minority being an Asian American with trumping it with, oh well, I'm Black, so you can't tell me nothing about oppression. And that's not getting us anywhere. And basically what me and Sarah were talking about the other day is like, that doesn't matter. Are we going to help each other or not? That's basically what I was saying. So you're good, brother Jonathan, because you be spitting fire on here. So come on back with it.
Well, so I will say again, referencing the thing that I said at the top of this, that there are entire swaths of both populations that are just here to flame each other, basically. Talk about the Shade Room comments, we talk about Baller Alert comments, we talk about people in Neck Sharks comments, and we talk about people in Asian with Attitudes comments. They will just not see it, and they don't want to see it, and they want to fan the flames. Fact, Black people have been oppressed in the United States since the beginning of the United States. Fact, people are now beating up Asians. Fact, Asians have been erased from their own stories throughout cinematic history. Fact, people view Asians as more feminized, whether you're male, female, or non-binary, and therefore make a lot of assumptions on what Asians can and cannot do. And so it's a lot of these back doors that come together, as well as the person who is, and their motivation as to what the conversation is going to look like. I say choose to find the people that want to love you, not the ones that want to hate you, because it's going to be very easy to find the people that are, especially on the internet, it's going to be easy to find those people. And that's why I created the Black and Asian Alliance Network, so that people from the side of Blackness as well as the side of Asianness can come together and have these tough discussions, call each other out, work, build something together. So, when we talk about, we have to acknowledge the facts. And I think that if we fix things in this country that Black people have been dealing with from like you said, 1776. So in 1996, that was 200 years, 2006.
Well, you got the first ship that touched this ground from Africa was 1619. America was established in 1776. Slavery was abolished in 1865. Basically 400 years of bullcrap. 303,
if we're going to say 1619 then. So that either way, it makes the point that it is a fact. If we were to fix those problems that were in place, that have been going on and continue to go on, Emmett Till, and then, not just on the Black side, Chinese Exclusion Act of what, 1886, 1890 something? The Los Angeles Chinese Massacre. These things happen, and they have happened. So it's always the same demon behind the action. And yes, it is a fact that it has happened to Black people longer. So if we slayed that demon, then you would fix everything for everyone else. Point blank, period. Because that would mean it would be such a radical change that we would not view each other through stereotypes, that we would learn to love each other, whether it was Black to Asian, white to Black, or Asian to Black. Okay? So, I'm not saying that Black people get a trophy for being killed the longest in the United States of America.
Why do we want the one, though? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Nobody wants them. The people that bring that up to shout down at Asians are the ones that just don't want to hear it anyway, and so you're not going to want to talk to them anyway.
And that's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying to get to is stop comparing boo-boos. Like, can you give me a freaking Band-Aid or not? You know what I'm saying? I think that's where it gets, where we're parsing around like the negativity of it all. It's like, yeah, I get it. I'm bleeding. Okay, you're bleeding. Cool. You need some Neosporin, and that person needs some peroxide. And somebody please get the Robitussin because somebody over here is fussing. So, but I think that's what the issue is that we're and I'm seeing it in both camps, and that it's even going with the whole, well, forget them Asian folks. They weren't really with us to begin with. And then like Asian folks now are kind of looking and saying, like, just from the reason that we're having this conversation, they've seen in recent acts of violence, they're like, well, we don't need them. This is that and third. We cannot allow we can't allow the gap to get wider, if that makes sense. And I'm talking about responsibility and accountability on my side. And Nate knows, because we be calling out people that look like us more than we do white folks nowadays. But I think that's where it needs to happen is we need to, like you said, my brother, you need to be able to take correction, seek to be corrected, because if you're going to seek to be corrected, you're going to seek to become a better person, period, regardless in what field you're doing this thing in. So
I think one thing too that we all have to acknowledge is that, like, as human beings, we all have bias, we all have prejudices. And of course, like, as people of color, you know, we cannot like systemically oppress people. We can't like necessarily be racist, quote unquote, but we still are capable of being cruel to each other. We still are capable of believing stereotypes of other groups, upholding stereotypes of our own groups. And that's like what we really need to call out. If we are in denial that we are capable of being hateful towards each other, then we're never gonna fix the inherent issue. Actually, it's like really interesting because I was reading that in the 50s and 60s, the Mao Zedong, who was the I guess like started the Chinese Communist Party, he was like very for the Black Power movement, very for like pro-Black civil rights, because he said, like, if the working class can realize that like the system of capitalism is inherently racist, especially in America, then the working class will realize and will like rise up. Because his like idea, and like this might be like pretty radical, is that if we get rid of capitalism, then we get rid of an inherently racist system that continues to put down minorities and people of color.
Anybody got anything for that?
That was like two different topics, but sorry.
No, you're all
touch
good.
on that last topic. I mean, yeah, white supremacy has always been an issue in this country. We know that, but one issue that plays into that is class warfare, and class warfare starts with the color green. And what I don't understand a lot of times when talking to people, and y'all were bringing it up, like, who's been oppressed more, and it's like, what, like you said, one, we shouldn't be worrying about who's oppressed more. Like, that's stupid. It's dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want that medal. Please don't give me that medal. Like, I don't want to talk about who's been oppressed more. But the gap in the racial division, if you look at it, especially in this country, coincides with the gap in class. And the middle class in and of itself is going away. And you're either poor or you're rich. 9 times out of 10, if you're rich, you don't look like one of us. Let's just be frank. Not to say that we can't be, but when you put somebody into a situation or an environment where there's not much around, a lot of people the first thing they're going to resort to is looking at people who do have something. And that's where I think we brought it up really, really earlier in the conversation about why some Black people look at Asian people who come over and put businesses in Black communities. It's one of those things where I don't have anything. Who the hell are these people to come into my neighborhood, set up shop, and start prospering, start doing well? And then that's what breeds the jealousy. And from jealousy, you get to hatred. And then that just continues the divide when it's not even something that you're not even angry at the Asian people who are supposedly coming into your community, setting up shop. You're just angry about the fact that you have nothing and you're looking at them as they're building something. And it's more jealousy and hatred than it actually is. You're mad about the fact that they put a store or a laundromat or a restaurant in your neighborhood.
I've always told people who make that last point will not make that last point, but say the thing that Nate is saying. Well, then go to a Black-owned business. I support Black-owned businesses. I love them. And so if you're mad that the Asian people are, then go to the Black-owned business. And 9 times out of 10, almost 10, they ain't going to the Black-owned business either. If y'all didn't like Chinese food, then you wouldn't be at the Chinese food place. So that's for the Black side. Like they're providing a service and a product, and y'all are throwing money at it. We need to understand that we have had these, again, I mentioned it earlier, like Black Wall Street. We had towns and stuff. Just do that again. There's enough money to go around in the world. And if your complaint is like, well, the Chinese, the Asian people, they come together, and the Jewish people, the Jewish dollar floats around the Jewish community 10 times before it exits, the Black dollar doesn't, then we need to form together and do something for ourselves. At the same time, you've got people out here who are Blasian like me, and I got into a big fight with one of them, talking about, so then a girl tweeted that exact sentiment, like if it's a Black product, then Black people should own the business. In this case, hair care, Black beauty shops. And people dragged this person and said, this is so racist, this is anti-Asian, because you're saying that Black people should own the products and sell the products that Black people buy. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's not radical. That's not racist. Everybody else does that. It's just we can't get our act together to do that and to support the Black businesses. Now that I've talked about the Black side, I want to go to the Asian side real quick and maybe
you just getting on everybody. Facts. Go ahead.
Get on some facts. No, but this is for non-Asian people, because Asian people do know this. Number one, in Asia or in the East, there's no word for Asian, because everybody is their own community. China is China. The Philippines is the Philippines. Japan is Japan. Korea is Korea. And they don't like each other. But then over here, we just look at them as Asian. And so then they're all just lumped into one thing. So there are intercommunal problems within, quote, the Asian community, whether it's West or East, that we as Americans don't even see and take into consideration. I live in New York. In Chinatown, certain Chinese people can't even walk down different blocks of Chinatown because they don't like each other within Chinese community. So you got the Fujianese, then you got the Mandarin, and you got the Cantonese, and all these different people. So they have their own problems. That's what I'm saying. We need to see each other, and we need to see each other's communities. Black people don't all love Jesus. There are some Black vegans. There are Black folks in the world. There are Black geeks. All this stuff. So see each other. That's what I'm saying. Like, and look, man, someone fact check me on that. Fact check me on the thing about there's no word for Asian, but I really think I saw this in the band community. They were like, "This is something I wish everybody would know. There's no word for Asian." So.
Anyway, I mean, and I might want to counter a little bit what you guys say. Look, if you don't love Jesus, that's fine. You don't love bacon. That personally, I'm triggered. Personally, I don't understand why Black people don't like bacon all of a sudden when we invented bacon, but that's besides the point. But he's telling the truth though. And then going back to I heard this quote, I had this interview with this pastor from Fresno, California. He said, we do a really good job of otherizing one another, but not humanizing one another. And we're always taking these labels and everything like that. And we're identifying folks. And then we decide whether or not this is how much dignity and respect I'm going to treat them with. And I think that in itself is a problem. That's a heart issue and a humanity issue right there.
Wait, can I say something now? Okay. Like, I'm vegan. And like, this is like possibly controversial, but I think like if we cannot have respect for every single life on this earth, you know, if we cannot respect animal life, if we can't respect human life, then how are we supposed to respect humans equally if we can't respect all life equally? Does that make sense?
No,
no shade to like people that like eat meat or whatever, but like that's just
no, you're fine. And I hope you know, my sister, that I'm not saying that you have the spirit of Satan on you because you rather have a Cobb salad opposed to a pork chop. We're all good here. But I think that's what it is though. It's like we need to be okay with being uncomfortable with one another. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, don't allow you, I guess, like asserting yourself to become aggressive. And then that's when it becomes a problem with us not so much existing with one another. So all good. You're vegan. That's interesting. I don't know what vegans eat. I don't even know where to start. But
Everything that you eat, just vegan. I eat everything that you eat.
I don't even know what that means. I eat Taco Bell. Do you eat Taco Bell?
Of course I eat Taco Bell.
Well, my brother he cracks on me all the time because he says I'm eating runaway dogs when I eat Taco Bell, but that's besides the point. But yeah. Anyway, guys, we kind of so I don't know if anybody has anybody checked out any of my content podcast wise that is on screen with me nowadays? No,
I did research to find out what I was getting into. So yes, to answer your question.
Okay, cool. So you know what we're about to get into right now, then currently, yes?
No.
Oh, your research
one or
failed you.
two things.
So I always do this thing to kind of like reset the room. We're not really tense. This is actually going a lot better than I thought, minus the little technicality issues. But usually this is what I bring up, and it's called one of my favorite segments I just started doing on my podcast. It's called Make It Make Sense. So basically, with Make It Make Sense, I play these random videos people tag me in on social media and stuff like that. You try to rationalize it with your mind. This gives us the opportunity to kind of laugh, get a couple of things off, because I've had certain conversations where everybody was tense, and I'm like, wait, let's watch funny videos of cats. So, this gives us a little bit of time to kind of just laugh, ease up a little bit. I don't know if anybody else is feeling tense. I had a heart attack 4 or 5 years ago, so it kind of is good for my heart to laugh every once. Yeah, it's a long story, brother. Maybe I'm eating too much bacon. I don't know. So yeah, it's just interesting. So I seriously doubt it was the bacon, but actually it might have been just me working too much because I was working like 90 hours a week at one point, and I still don't have a cool as a car as my brother Nate has. So if everybody's ready, kind of loosen up a little bit, kick your shoes off. Once again, this is smoking blunt hour time, so all good. So if everybody's ready, it's time for Make It Make Sense.
What the fuck is this?
Is something supposed to happen right now?
Huh?
Is that a lie?
Well,
Oh, is that a great?
What the fuck is this?
Huh? I think that was.
What was that?
No!
Oh! I'm sorry. Was that like a Christmas ball that he ate? It was glass.
Somebody make it make sense. Come on. Try. Go ahead. I'm waiting.
He was pranked, or maybe someone put green apples in the bowl with Christmas ornaments that were also green, and he thought he was eating another green apple, and he cut up his whole mouth.
But the first one, I think the first one was one of those like decoration fruit.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I didn't hear the sound the first time. Screaming is so funny. I'm sorry, I have sadistic tendencies.
I felt that. I really felt that. Like,
To think of how it makes sense, I guess, like, why in the world would he take a bite of the first one and take another bite to the second? Like, whenever you pick up an apple, wouldn't you just finish the first one? Why in the world would he go to the next one?
The first thing I thought of, Nate, was what would your mom do if she saw you doing something like that?
Before or after she slapped me?
Ew, like we weren't that family that got into like fake fruit and stuff like that. But ayo, you told me you biting a doggone plastic apple and then you go and bite the glass one that grandma just bought for us for Christmas. I don't know.
I want to know how, like, what was that brother's mind state to where, because me personally, if I go pick up an apple right now at a refrigerator, apples got a certain weight to them. I know for a fact, whether that was an ornament or glass or whatever, that did not weigh the same that a normal apple did. So that should have been his first cue, like, something's off.
I don't know. Anybody
Did
else?
Did it go viral?
Yeah, they're on TikTok. They're doing all right now. But I just
Okay. I mean, has anyone ever, like, is anyone thinking right now, like, how much glass he's had to pick out of his mouth? Have none of you seen a scene where this woman, like, mistook a light bulb for an apple, bit into the light bulb, and then there was, like, this really gross, disgusting scene. I mean, unless you like gore or something, like me. You legitimately watched her pick out the glass from her mouth.
how do you mistake a light bulb for an apple? How the hell does that happen?
Movie.
That was my first question.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, I just think that the weight would be different. I mean, like, even if you're, I don't know. I can't explain that one. That's just kind of beyond me.
Maybe he meant to do it.
I don't know, but the way that he put so much passion into the second bite, like I just.
Oh, you're muted, dude.
Oh, thank you, darling. I appreciate that. This one was kind of interesting. I don't okay. I think it's just better to just show y'all.
In my head, I don't know what to think. He knelt to the ground and pulled out a ring and said, "Marry me, Juliet, you never have to be alone."
Did anybody check if she was okay afterwards?
Oh,
I didn't see the entire
You didn't see it? I got you.
In my head, I don't know what to think. He knelt to the ground and pulled out a ring and said, "Marry me, Juliet, you never have to be alone."
She tore her Achilles. I don't know. Somebody make it make sense. She didn't stretch first.
Well, what was she doing? Was it like Tai Chi or a Hadouken or something? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Was she trying to do like a
was
dance?
kneeling.
My man said
No, it's like the
Hadouken.
trend where it's like the knelt to the ground, pull out a ring, the love story song, you know, Taylor Swift. How old are you guys exactly?
I'm 27.
Oh my gosh! Are you a 93, baby?
94.
94.
Wow.
Nate's in his.
No.
It's all right, black men. You look beautiful. Nobody even knows. It's all right.
I've been 30 for the last 3 years. Well, it'll be 4 this year.
As long as your hairline's not on 50, you doing all right. You know what I'm saying?
It's getting there, bro.
I know, but I did anyway. But yeah, somebody try to make that make sense.
In my head, I don't know what to think. He knelt to the ground and pulled out a ring and said, "Marry me, Juliet, you never have to be alone."
Maybe her equilibrium got thrown off somehow. And
Okay, so what in the world was up with the shoes?
What do you mean?
Her shoes look too much like her skin color. I was like thinking, is she like bare feet? But I know that she tripped. Do you think that was on purpose?
In my head, I don't know what to think. He knelt to the ground and pulled out a ring and said, "Marry me, Juliet."
She's wearing like hiking shoes. I don't know. I thought it was funny. I figured it was something great to reset the room, but she probably tore her Achilles. She over there. Maybe Kevin Durant will send her a pair of shoes. Who knows, man? I mean, I don't know. This one was kind of funny because I've actually been here before. I just haven't needed to check my equipment like this before. But yeah. Tinted windows. They can be your best friend and your worst enemy sometimes.
I fight book, she take that, putting overtime on your body. You ain't gotta go to work.
Okay, that one's so fake. I've seen so
That was
many.
so embarrassing.
You know where she messed up? She should have just kept going with it. She shouldn't have stopped and acknowledged the person rolling the window down, and she should have just kept rolling with it.
She should have just kept going.
Yeah, just keep going.
Kept picking her nose. What you say?
Like at that point, you're caught. He done saw you digging all in your nostril. Like just get what you was looking for and just move
That's
on.
because you have kids. You think like this because you have kids.
No, because like what you walking away, like the embarrassment is there already. If you just own it, at least like I don't know, but
You're trying to rationalize this as a father. That's what you're doing.
You said make it make sense, correct?
I know. I just think it's funny. Like,
all right, when you have kids and you get in those situations, you'll understand. Like sometimes you just gotta take the L and just finish the job.
How old are your kids?
My daughter is 8 and my son is 4.
Okay, so they're
his
relatively-
daughter's 8, but 28. She's the oldest 8-year-old I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, she is a whole grown woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, black woman on your hands. She out here letting you know what she is about and not about. I guess the one thing I have questions
I fight up, she take that, putting overtime on your body.
You ain't gotta go to work.
I feel like if you have to do all of that outside of the house, you didn't do enough before you left the house, personally. Because I got a big nose. This thing's a filter for everything. If I got a boogie in my nose, I can't breathe properly, just being honest with y'all. I mean, like, I had a Squidward as early as 10 years old. So when there's a booger in my nose, I go into what is it? I feel like I have a upper respiratory infection. So I can't just like go and leave the house knowing that there's something like no. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, she was picking her teeth too. Like she was adjusting her bra, I guess. I don't know. There was just too much maintenance involved. I feel like if you need to do all that, you need to take your car in for the shop. If you going outside the house doing all this, personally.
Listen, as a woman, you gotta adjust somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like things get out of place. You don't know what's gonna happen when you're out in the like, walking around for like 2 or 3 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that was really planned.
Need to be adjusted.
But I think that was fake. Like it just like didn't like. I don't know.
It was really fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Girls in
I don't know
here,
anybody's gonna pick their nose in public. Go ahead, Sarah.
When us girls, when we go out, we like to tend to look good or somewhat put together. I mean, we're not gonna go up to a car and do that unless you have. Then I don't quite understand what you were thinking.
No,
I guess
I
like
don't
front-face cameras don't exist anymore on your phones. Like you couldn't have done that in your phone. I don't know. It was interesting. Jonathan, you have anything for us, brother?
You got to do what you got to do.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
This one kind of like freaks me out, considering like the issues we were having earlier. But yeah.
Hey, bro, you good? Your hands are clean. Your hands are clean, man. Leave the water alone. Leave the damn water alone, man. Your hands are clean, man. Your hands are clean, man. You're wasting that water, man.
So I'm gonna let y'all know right now. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she would have ran through there with the holy oil, and I mean, like you. No, that whole bathroom is going up in flames. Like the minute I noticed that was happening 2 times, I'm out, yo. I can't.
Nope.
Do you guys believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
If you believe in a God, you gotta believe in the devil. That's all I gotta say. Okay, shoot.
I mean, I don't want to say like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Oh, you can. You. Okay. Okay. There was this one time. This was before my freshman year. I was at this college for a camp, and I was telling a scary story with all the girls tucked into one dorm room. This was before COVID happened and everything. And when I was telling the scary story, the sink turned on, like just out of nowhere, and so everyone just screamed.
Oh hell
flat
no!
out of the room. My friend said when I was telling the story, apparently my eyes turned red, and I guess it didn't help that I was holding a pair of scissors because I really like to scare everybody.
No, that's not okay at all. And to answer your question, my sister, yes, if you believe in a God, you gotta believe in the devil, because that I can't. I don't know what.
Hey, bro, you good? Your hands are clean.
No.
Your hands are clean, man. Leave the water alone.
So my question is, like, why don't people who, or rather, like in these movies, like Paranormal Activity and stuff, where like stuff like that happens, like that's the beginning of a paranormal activity, right? Just the scene. But then later beds are flying all around the place. Why don't they ever just bring in like a gospel choir into their house, or like a pastor? They never, like, they tried it, and then like the person they bring over is like a spiritualist, and it's always the same thing. They walk through the front door and they're like, oh, and they get scared, and then they walk away because they're like, oh, it's too tainted. And I'm like, girl, just get some black folks. Get Ricky Dillard up in there. Get Kirk Franklin. Like, book his talent.
He said Kirk gonna come in there doing that one leg kick or whatever he be doing.
Y'all are no damn good. Bringing the commissions.
Just go anywhere and get some anointed, sanctified Kojic person to come into your house and start shouting out.
Get somebody's auntie up in there.
Get Sister Mary Elma cracking. Hey, EBB Ashanama. Just get her in there. They teach you. Well, actually, they don't teach you, but they might as well. To sound all spiritual and whatnot, you got to like blend your words. So you'll say like, "Should about a Honda?" Yes, and then you break it down. You're like, "What about a Nissan? Why I gotta be a Honda? That don't make no doggone sense." Look here, y'all. There's not really a lot you could make sense with that. That's more like you gotta go. It's time for us to leave. We need to go use the bathroom somewhere else. I think there was a nice creek over there, and I think I got some Fabuloso in my purse. We're gonna be all right. I'm not dealing with that today. That's a no. Anything else y'all want to talk about this paranoia? You know what's another thing I'm wondering? Why is he sitting there trying to talk to the ghost, if there is a ghost?
That's what I was wondering. My first reaction, it wouldn't have been no, you don't need no water. It'd been like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna leave now, and I'll wash my hands somewhere else.
Why are you parched, Mr. Ghost? I got some Ricolas in my back pocket.
The ghost said we're in a pandemic, and even I have to wash my hands.
I love this guy. Hey, Nate, can we adopt him, please?
It's just a socially conscious ghost.
Really? I can't. This one, this is so for some odd reason, my family loves when I do. I don't know if anybody knows the TikToker Hood Meals by chance. I don't know if you've ever heard of this dude. He's like this black dude with dreadlocks. He cooks food completely unorthodox, super violent and aggressive. Anyway, he's kind of a favorite on this channel as far as like clips and stuff. The stuff he just does, it just irritates me how he cooks his food. I think this is it. Yep, that is it. Yep. So let me make sure I pick part one. All right. I'm gonna put all y'all on screen so I can see y'all faces with this madness. No, that ain't it.
Yes, sir. First day cooking on Terminator 2.0, baby. And you want to season it, John? Yes, sir. How did you season it? Go ahead. Damn. Big ass T-bone. Yes, sir. Let's get it, baby.
That's how you do
Oh,
this
yeah,
shit.
they want to go ahead and clean our refrigerator out, bro. Ain't nothing up in there. Shit. What the fuck is that? Could've been here for 3 months. Hard ass cooking. man. Hell no. What is he, a bird? Oh, fuck, I got. Oh. But they freeze. Damn.
It gets worse. Hold on. There's a part 2.
Nah, we good.
What the fuck is that?
I didn't understand. Like, I thought it was going to be about him cooking a steak, and instead we're watching his dirty ass kitchen.
It's juicy. That's juicy, huh? That's juice. Now it's time for the taste. I see how y'all be cutting them steaks and shit, like go around.
I can't. So
I can feel the E. coli, the dysentery, all of that just oozing. First off, when the video starts and it looks like you took your air fryer mudding with you with the windows down, that right there just let me know where that video was going.
I can't. I don't understand. Stop sending. People like really send me this because like I have my brother on here sometimes and he gets in like this weird asthma attack. I guess they thought that he was going to be on here tonight. But I think the one thing that makes me so mad is like how he throws his meat on the counter. That really just upsets me to no end. I don't know about y'all. Why is it got to be so violent? My goodness. So wait. So once again, I don't know how veganism, if that is a term. So do y'all eat steak? No, you don't eat steak.
No, but there's a ton of like vegan substitutes that you can eat like that are very like protein rich and don't involve killing animals and murdering them and torturing them.
So do you guys eat seafood?
No seafood. That would be pescatarian. But I mean, there's like debate about whether like mussels or like do they feel pain and do they have like a neurological like a nervous system. So sometimes I eat like mussels or scallops, but like that's like kind of like depends on the vegan. Someone asked if I eat pho. I eat pho all the time. I just had it yesterday. You know, like I eat everything that
is amazing.
Yeah.
I
eat everything that I love. It's just vegan now.
Pescatarian. I thought that was a religion at first, but now I found out it's a food regimen. That's ridiculous. Shut up, Nate.
So just to clear it up, so vegan is where you don't eat anything that lives, basically, or its products.
No animal products, like no dairy, no meat, no cheese, milk, anything like that. If like a vegan lifestyle would involve, like not buying leather, like leather boots, or just like animal byproducts like that.
But okay, I have so many questions, but all right. So I'm a carnivore, right? Like my mom, when I was teething, my mama handed me a turkey bone, no cap. She's like, "Here you go. Your teeth are growing in. Here's a turkey bone. Chew on that for a little bit." So you guys don't eat animal, period. Like just anything that involves animals, you not touching, like one bit.
No, but I still eat. Yesterday I had Alfredo pasta with like quote unquote chicken. Like I've had fried chicken made out of tofu. We call it like chicken or like steak or whatever, just because like that's what we understand it as. But it's just the same thing, but vegan.
Huh. Okay. Well, you know what? If you good with it, I'm good with it. I mean, I personally think we'll get the shakes if I don't eat red meat every like 4 hours personally, but hey, I mean, like,
well, that's probably why you had that heart attack.
No, actually, I had a heart attack because I was working 90 plus hours a week. Like anybody will tell you, Nate knew me around that time. Like all I did was work. I barely saw my house. The fact that your phone registered, huh?
Sorry, I just want to. I'm like gonna go full on vegan here for a little second. But like I highly suggest like red meat is like one of the biggest causes of cancer. It's really not good for you. But besides that fact, like animal agriculture in general is like the leading cause of climate change. Like we all, we want our earth to be there for children. Like this is one of the biggest things that we can change. Like we can actually like an actionable step that we can take, and like one hamburger requires like 660 gallons of water just to make and like grow that cow and like kill that cow. But and like almost 2/3.
Are you reading off of a list right now?
I got something. This is like I got something prepared for everybody. Anyway, I don't want to like.
Sister, I love you. We could be best friends after this, but we kind of got one ism to deal with, right? there's just one.
But it's all connected. I mean, like to me, it's all connected, right? Like because
I hear
like
you.
Respect for animals is also respect for other humans and like human life. If we can respect animals and animal life, we can respect other humans just the same.
I just think that's fun. She got
okay. I'm curious.
Go ahead.
Okay, so do you guys drink milkshakes?
I've had milkshakes, yeah, but they're just not made out of milk. But totally, yeah, I love milkshakes.
I get another one.
You know what? All right, we'll talk offline about this. To me, you could say chicken is cauliflower fried. How milkshake's not milk? That we'll talk about that later. That'll be another podcast. And that concludes our Make It Make Sense segment. It's just something, like I said, it kind of resets the room. Sometimes the topics I bring up here, they're very tense. Everybody, for some reason, the anxiety is a lot worse. Leaving some of these heavy topics. So I started to integrate something, everybody can laugh. I think nobody's, suspended from laughter. So we can kind of ease back into it. And now it's funny how I'm going to try to use this animal thing as a segue, or vegan thing as a segue. I'm not going to say animals because we're not supposed to be doing anything with animals apparently. But okay, so I'm kind of curious, and I'm trying to see if I could tie this into it. But what made you want to go into becoming a vegan, Mai, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I honestly used to think a lot like you. I was like, why would anybody want to be vegan? Like, that's fucking weird. My partner was vegan. He taught me a lot about how veganism affects, or how animal agriculture is so dangerous to our environment. And also I have a dog, and we see a ton of racism in animal rights. Like, people are so offended by Chinese people having the Yulin Dog Festival. People are like, how dare you eat, how dare you eat dogs? Like, that's so disgusting. What's wrong with you? But animals, cows, pigs, chickens, they are just as cognizant, just as smart, just as aware as dogs are. So if I'm not going to eat my dog, if I think that that's disgusting, then how can I possibly eat cows or pigs or chickens? That's just not right to me. But everybody has different reasons for why they want to.
No. And you know what? And I think that's why I wanted to ask you that. You said that people were assuming you eat dogs. Unfortunately, that's a stereotype. And you said that kind of, in a weird, is the way you're describing, it opened up new things for you that provoked you to not want to eat, pretty much not eat animals anymore. It's just interesting that it took something kind of traumatic like that to introduce you to how you eat food now. That's just.
Well, it wasn't really that anybody specifically said that to me. It's just that I see a lot of people who are anti-Yulin Dog Festival, but still eat meat. And to me, that's a racist, performative sort of activism, right? We talk about how people can be performative in their activism. And to me, that's a form of performative activism where you only stand for one species, one animal, just because you feel that they're domesticated enough. Yet other animals like pigs are just as smart as 3-year-olds. They're smarter than dogs. Yet we still allow for the torture and killing of those animals.
I think there needs to be some clarification. We should probably explain what the festival is and what happens there.
Oh, yeah. So the Yulin Dog Festival is, I don't know a ton about it. I don't want to say anything that's inaccurate, but basically the idea is that people in China have this festival where they specifically eat dogs. I don't know a ton about it, but that's I hear so many people get on the internet and talk about how horrible it is. How dare these people eat dogs? What's wrong with them? They're so dirty. They're so disgusting. What's wrong with them? Right. But you eat cows, you eat pigs, you eat chickens. How can you say that if you still eat meat? It's the same exact thing.
And I just think once again, I just think that's kind of interesting that it took Wait, you said you're Japanese, correct? So before I call you Chinese, okay. But I just think that it's kind of crazy that it took like, in a weird way, like a stereotype directed you into a lifestyle you have. I just thought that was interesting, is all. Not saying like, everybody needs to like kind of go through trauma to be shaped as a person, but I just think that it's just weird. That's something I would even consider being a Black American. I'm saying that's not something I would consider that an Asian American would even think about. Like, that's why it goes back to like these words have weight. You know what I mean? Like saying stuff ignorant, like Asian people eat dogs and stuff like that, as if you guys are monopoly eating dogs for some odd reason. So I don't know. I don't know how you feel about me coming up with that revelation, but I just thought that was interesting that it traced back to the fact of you are Asian American, though. So
sure, I think that it's just like we see like a hierarchy of people of color. We see that like people are like, oh, like we got like white people, and then like we're all like scrabbling for like second place, like maybe Asians or like Black people, and then we see that too in animals and speciesism, like dogs, cats, like they're like holy and they're sacred, but like cows, pigs, chickens, they don't matter. And so to me personally, like all of those lives matter, and they're just as cognizant, and so that's why I'm vegan.
Got it. So when you say all animals matter, you literally mean all animals matter. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm really interested in how I'm going to take this. So I think this is something, I guess, that because once again, I feel like these stories aren't being told enough. And this is more to a question, I guess, to the Asian Americans on screen. How does this stuff make you feel, like with all this stuff going on and everything like that, where there's violence happening against your community? Because even Sarah, she felt this weird, I can't even say guilt, but even when I was asking her how is she feeling with all this happening, she turned it back to, well, I know that, Black people go through this, that, and the third, but I don't think anybody's taking the time to just ask you guys, how does all this crap, like, how does this stuff happening make you feel? Either one of y'all can go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. And of course, like, it's hard because, like, of course, like, I wouldn't want to say that, like, my problems are more important than, like, other people's issues. And
I'm not saying you were saying that, but this is why I'm asking you this question, because going back to that whole, well, we've been bleeding longer, you're bleeding, somebody's bleeding. Like, you guys are bleeding, you know what I'm saying? Which is why I wanted to create this space. That way you guys can talk about the fact that you guys are going through pain and not have to feel like, well, I'm taking space. No, I provided this space for you guys to share your story. So if you feel
you don't need to provide the space, there are people out there that are saying the things that we won't say on this panel.
I get that.
There are Asian men out there and others that believe like them, but I mainly see it in places like Reddit where Asian identity and I know certain people as well that I call friends, but they have some views. And I know that Mai makes TikTok videos specifically to this, so at least I know that she also knows that there are people out there who very much believe in. So for the purposes of this segment of the conversation, I'll say there are two types of people. There are the people that say, in the face of Black Lives Matter, oh no, we're currently going through Black Lives Matter, so what's happening to us, that's only a small little dip in the pool of whatever, and so I don't want to step on the toes of Black Lives Matter. And then there are people who look at people who say that and say, how dare you throw Asians under the bus? We are going through it right now. You would rather simp for another cause. You don't care about Asian issues. You don't care about your own people. You're a boba liberal, all this type of stuff. So just understand, as I mentioned with how, quote, the Asian community is at war with each other, even in this conversation, it's not like all Asians are like all doing I don't think my problems are as important. No, there are definitely a lot.
Oh no, I hear you, and I'm just saying that on my platform, in my space, that I have no problem with you guys sharing your stories, because at the end of the day, you guys are my brothers and my sisters, regardless of how far back we go talking about heritages and cultures and everything like that. You guys walk this earth with me, so it would be an honor in my space to hear how you guys are dealing with this stuff right now. So anyone, you can go first.
I mean, it is scary. You know, it is. I mean, my parents are here. They're in Houston. Like, it, you know, I don't know. I'm not like by them. Like, it's scary to know that like maybe they could be out and just like get assaulted like that. Me personally, like, I wouldn't say that I'm like fearful for my own life, but I do feel like again, like just so unheard. Like when we speak up about issues like this, and it's like, oh, it doesn't, you know, like you're not oppressed. Like I'm not trying to say that like I am oppressed. I'm trying to say like, hey, like look, like this is happening. Like pay attention. Like pay attention to what's going on. So it is like a little frustrating, being in that position.
I get that. Sarah, Jonathan. I mean, even Sister G, if you guys got anything.
I pretty much echo what was just said. My grandma is 85 years old, actually, in San Diego, in an apartment by herself. And she's been told to stay inside because of COVID, first of all. But she does like to walk, and she likes to go to the local mall and stuff. And I mean, folks are out here beating up old, like 85-year-old people and punching them in the head, pushing them, and all sorts of stuff. My mom lives in San Diego, and she's on a cane and is 60-something. And she's also very much Filipino. So, like, I know that this could happen to any one of my relatives on my Filipino side. So it's very scary.
Sarah, G, you guys got anything?
I mean, it is extremely frustrating, and I'm scared at the same time. Coming from the background I come from, I'm adopted. My whole family is actually white, so I feel whenever I try to relay these things to them, they don't understand. They don't really know what I feel. So it's frustrating in that sense for me, because I don't really feel like I have anyone to talk too much about it. Hell, over Christmas break, I even had one of my uncles make a racist joke about Asians with me in the room. So that was fun.
That's just unfortunate.
I was going to say, it's like now because of being a Black woman and all other, even including Asians and all, I feel like all other races, I feel like as being a Black woman, it's kind of hard. Like now these days, because of all the racism, by watching all these videos and reading all these articles about how women have been treated and Black ones, it's like now these days, I feel like I always need someone, like a partner, and I can't be like alone whenever I go somewhere. And it's really traumatizing myself because of all the races. And now these days, like, to be honest with y'all, I've been only watching cartoons because of all these things, because of watching all these races. I feel like traumatized, and it's really hurting my heart.
I get that. I think one thing that Sarah said that is, it really sucks, is like, I think it's a reality though for her though, because I've realized that with a lot of people that are adopted, is this mindset because of your association to them that your plight is like lessened, or better yet, because it's coming from me. This isn't supposed to hurt your feelings, you know what I mean? And I think that's trash. And I mean, and I guess my next question for you guys, is this the first time, I guess, in you guys' lives as Asian Americans where you've had to kind of think like this with this paranoia in the back of your head? And even anybody can go first for this one too.
This is actually my first time because whenever I'm with my Filipino family, they never bring this up at all. Well, my grandpa, he's full Filipino. My mother, she's Filipino and Puerto Rican. So whenever I'm around my grandpa, he's the one that, well, he never actually explains about it, and me, I'm never there. Like I don't really understand about our culture about with Filipinos. I'm always there for Black, but I'm really glad that I get to open my head and understand how you guys feel with Asians, because to be honest with you, with the news and all, I've been focusing mainly about like African Americans and Puerto Ricans, but I'm so glad that now we get to actually talk about how Asians are treated. Thank you. And um, another thing is like sometimes whenever I'm around Asians and all, they don't really think about it. And to be honest with you, it's kind of hurting my feelings a little bit because one of my aunt actually voted for Donald Trump. So it's like,
We're
I
just
don't
gonna
know.
pray for her in extensive prayer, but that's beside the point.
I know. It's like, and then another thing that I think in my head, I don't know if I'm like being a bad person or not, but I feel like I can't really trust my friends or anyone else who actually voted for him. And people actually tried to protest for him. I don't know, because I really stopped like following them. I stopped even reaching out, and the other people that even said like all lives matters. It's like I feel like I can't really be myself because I'm a Black woman, and how they all are there following Donald Trump and all. How do you guys feel?
Totally. I think that that's like kind of going along with what Jonathan said of people trying to align with whiteness and upholding like white supremacy and upholding the model minority myth. And I think that these people really struggle to see how foreign they actually are seen within that camp. And I think there's a lot of just fear of the unknown from them. I don't know. Like, I don't know anybody like personally that voted. I mean, I do, that is Asian and voted for Trump. I don't know anybody that did that personally.
So the question that I originally asked is like, what is this the first time, I guess, in your lives where you've had to be on edge like this simply because of being Asian American in light of recent stuff going on?
It is for me. Growing up, white community, I really tried so hard to just be white. I wanted to be the perfect blonde, blue-eyed, pretty girl that I always felt I was presented with in society. So I did have my fair share of, stereotypes and some racist jokes here and there, but I brushed them off to the side thinking that, you know what, maybe if I just change myself this way, then no one can ever say that about me again. It was a horrible way of thinking. It really was. I had a lot of self-hatred for myself. And then getting older, I began to slowly love myself and realize that there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to become this so-called perfect person. But when COVID hit, that's when I began hearing all the racism and the hatred towards the Asian community and how Trump addressed the coronavirus as the Kung flu or the Chinese virus. Just so many people were attacking a lot of Asians. And the other thing is, they don't even quite know ethnicity-wise what you are. They just like to make their assumptions like, oh, you're Chinese or you're Japanese or you're Korean. They don't take time to actually understand that they may not even be one of those ethnicities. But I am Chinese, and I have had a couple people who have on some level made jokes. I never found them funny, but I never really said much about them because I didn't want to get into anything. I was scared, in all honesty, that they would actually begin to get more into and say, well, it is your fault because you guys eat dogs, you guys are dirty. It was just a horrible thing. And yeah.
Brother Jonathan?
I would have to say just being red black, and living with my father for half of my minor life and then living in Mississippi in the South, that through my blackness, I was able to see what was going to happen because it happened to Black folks. You thought it wasn't going to happen to anybody else. It's going to happen to other folks. I understand that there are some Asians out there who were surprised by the election of Trump, then the things he said, then the Capitol riot. But as a Black person who happens to also be Asian, I was able to have been blessed with the foresight, the experience to know that if it happens to me, what's it to stop from happening to you? And I think there's a famous quote out there. It's like, when I think it's a Holocaust thing, it's like when the Nazis came for me, I said nothing. and then they came for these people, and I said nothing. And then so basically, if they come for you, and I'm to parallel myself with it, they came for the black people. Why wouldn't I think they would come for the Asian people? I'm not under some spell that makes me think, oh, I align to whiteness, so I'm good. No. So I wasn't surprised. And in my own personal life, I have my Asian identity didn't make me naive to the fact that racism is very real and that oppression is also very real.
If you want, I could read that quote real quick that you were talking about. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I am not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yep, that's it.
Mai, you had something before I rudely cut you off? I'm sorry, my sister.
I was just gonna say, growing up, like just like Sarah said, especially in a primarily white neighborhood, I really struggled with my identity and like understanding like not accepting racism just because it seems so like harmless, and it's like those are those microaggressions that we're always talking about. And then growing up, like, I would notice it and I would want to say something, but I couldn't quite like articulate like why that bothered me. And people would be like, what? It's a joke. Like, it's a joke, take a joke, and that I think that's a really common experience for a lot of Asian Americans, is that like, oh, it's harmless, like you're not like getting murdered in the street, so like, well, so what? But I think with COVID, with Trump's election, really, we really started to, at least for me, I started really being able to understand and dive deep into like how harmful all that actually is, and how like that builds up into this violence and murder and hate that we see today. So no, I've never, this is like probably the first time that I'm feeling like really in danger, so to speak. But it's been a long time coming.
I think and I think we as a people talking about African Americans, we can relate to as Sarah said, you need to suppress your Asianness to suit other people's whiteness. Nate, you know a little bit about my testimony, brother. I had a really long journey of self-hatred where I felt like I could not fit the conventional black man norm in a lot of ways. So it got to the point, because I'm African American, but I'm also Polynesian, so I fit in a lot of brown boxes. But when it came to my blackness, I felt like to not disturb the white folk around me, I had to suppress my blackness, and my blackness never measured up to other blacknesses in my community. So it got to a point like I just denounced it, and it got to a very scary place where when issues like this happens and everything like that, I would feel like I'm not, what's the word? And me and Sarah talked about this off camera, that I'm not qualified to speak about certain things. Like with her, she says she has white parents. Me, I don't act like the typical black guy. So I don't know anything about black plight by any means. And me and Nate have talked about that extensively, where we've had to like code switch to like, suffice others, and, so we don't disturb other people's white fragility. That thing, that joint, that'll mess up any community for real. But I just think that, and I think for me specifically, and I can't speak up for for the whole black community, I think if anybody knows what you guys are going through right now in this time, it's definitely us. For sure. Nate,
just a point of clarification. What is a typical black guy?
Brother, I'm still trying to figure that out. Doggone it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm waiting for that. I need somebody to give me a poster and it makes sense and I can put it up in my room. But in case you're wondering, this conventional black guy does Naruto runs in his Nikes and drives a Nissan Altima. But that's besides the point. Brother Nate, you got something for me?
Oh, my bad.
All good, brother. Now you're making us dizzy. Come on now.
Chill, bro.
You gonna talk?
Oh, you told me to mute myself.
No, I was saying you got anything to fuck, man. You ain't even
Oh.
paying attention.
No, I was paying attention. I thought you said mute myself. No, but first off, like Jonathan just said, like I always tell you, like there's no definition of what a black person is. Like anybody who says that is just ignorant. But I was actually curious and wanted to ask the question, and this harkens back to something me and Jordan talk about all the time offline, just through text. But and this is to the Asian brothers and sisters that are on the panel. Are you guys feeling any fatigue or just mental, like, I don't want to deal with this right now, just with everything going on and the intensity and 2020 being what 2020 was? And because Jordan asked me earlier if I was going to show up tonight, we had talked about it. And I said, honestly, I'll show up. I'll talk because I'm always open for this. And I always learn something whenever I'm on his pod. But like Sister G, I stopped watching the news. Like, I don't pay attention to a lot of current events, just simply because I had gotten to the point where, and not to say this is only black people, but you get to a point where you're just so exhausted mentally that you're like, I don't want to deal with it right now. And you take a break. And that's where I was for, I want to say, the past week and a half. So I'm just curious if you guys are feeling like you're getting to that breaking point.
Yeah, I mean, this is the therapist in me speaking, but like we are like, as a collective, like going through some serious trauma, not only the pandemic, but with the Black Lives Matter protests, the anti-Asian hate crimes, like these are all traumas that we are going through. So it makes so much sense that we are all feeling some sort of emotional burnout. Like this is a lot for anybody to handle, you know? So it makes a lot of sense. And yes, I am feeling burnt out. Like it's just a lot to handle. This 2020 has been like freaking crazy. So yeah, I think it makes sense that we're all feeling some type of way. Absolutely.
Sister Sarah?
I will admit I'm burned out. I just got done with applications for college. I got accepted, so I'm very happy about that. Thank you. I guess, since I asked everyone about their age, I was kind of wondering what age groups everyone fell into. I am 18 for reference. But I am tired, and I think it is good to take a break sometimes and let yourself cool down and come at ease, but I myself don't want to stop. I believe it is important to continue fighting for what I believe in, and I want to be a part of the change because things are going to change slowly but surely, and I want to be a part of it.
I want to add something to that because I think that as minorities, as people of color, even if we are taking like a quote unquote break, like we're never actually like taking a break, like, right? Like we can't just like stop being Asian. We can't just stop being Black. So even within like us taking breaks, like we actually are not like really taking a break.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that because that was going to be my point. And I know that that wasn't the question, but yeah, naturally all of us are tired because we all deal with our own things. Asians, I mean, anti-Asian COVID-related anti-Asian violence, which started up in 2020 because COVID started right around then, was not the kicking off point for anti-Asian racism. Every Asian, well, I won't say every, but many Asian Americans especially, will probably exclusively have the story of people picking on them because they brought a certain thing to school for lunch, or having slanted eyes, or other stereotypes that have been pushed into society and being bullied by kids and adults. You don't get to stop being Asian. Black people have the same oppressive stereotypes pushed on them from the womb and throughout history. You don't get to stop being Black. So you're tired, but you have to keep on fighting. If you don't, then you're checked out of life.
I think what that is, and it kind of reminds me, it's not so much of my favorite quote, but it makes more the most sense to me is this James Baldwin quote. To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a state of rage all the time. Kind of like what Sarah was saying, and Nate knows I'm active with activism. If I'm not in the streets, I'm meeting with legislators. If I'm not meeting with legislators, I'm talking with judges. If I'm not talking to judges, I'm talking to councilmen in different districts all over my state. There's no like clocking out of this work. You know what I'm saying? And I think, but kind of going back to like what Maya was saying, and you know, I didn't know she was a you said a therapist? You got a therapist up in here? My goodness.
Yeah, I'm a music therapist though. But yeah.
Man, shoot, I might need to send you some PayPals and ask you what your Zoom is. I am stressed out with a K. Anyway, what do you think? And this is to hate to put you. Actually, no, I don't. To kind of put you on the spot, what do you suggest is a good approach, or even just suggest for a balance in this time for minorities dealing with this pandemic, and I also call it a clandemic at the same time? What would you give as far as advice for this specific time for people that look like us?
I mean, yeah, like first acknowledging that like it's going to be hard to separate like your individual self and like your identity from like what's going on in the outside world, right? Like as minorities, as people of color, we can't separate can't take away our Asianness or our Blackness and take a break from that. But also like just, I think one thing within the pandemic that I found really helpful for myself personally is just finding things that I enjoy that don't necessarily have to do with like activism or have to do with being Asian. I took up knitting again. That's like one of my hobbies now. Obviously like I play a lot of music, but that's like tied into my job. So it's not really like just a hobby, but just like finding things that you find joy in, right? And you can even find someone commented like you can find joy in activism, and if that's what brings you joy, then like that's great too. But not being too hard on yourself for being burnt out, like that's totally normal, that's totally like absolutely understandable, and just having some compassion for yourself, I think overall.
Being kind to yourself is what I heard you say. Essentially.
Yeah, giving yourself that space to be frustrated, or you know, and accepting that and being okay with it.
You good over there, little sister Sarah? What's going on with you? I hate to put you on blast, but you're on camera, so.
What do you mean? I'm fine.
Well, I mean, like, because I said, like, you know, you and me talk a little bit about like this stuff going on. I know this is a burning desire for you. Like, what? I guess, like, how is this directly impacting you is the question. Just because I just feel compelled to ask you that is all.
Like mentally, how am I feeling mentally? I mean, I've been through the ringer just at the beginning of January. 5 days in, I learned something I wish I hadn't learned, and that fucking destroyed me. So, and now it's taken about a month for me to somewhat simmer down from just that things are just piling on and on again with so many things. And I mean, I can't take a break from the fact that I'm Asian. I know that that's never a thing, but at the same time, I just need to close my eyes, take a breather, cry sometimes, just let it out. But then I need to get back up again, and I will. But there's nothing wrong with taking some time, letting out all your emotions. I think that actually what makes you a brave person, by acknowledging them.
I think to kind of give you a little bit of advice is recognizing that you're hurting too at the end of the day, and you know, acknowledging something I always have to say to people that look like me all the time. I always have to say, you know, it's okay to not be okay. You know what I'm saying? That's something I gotta say to Nate a lot, because Nate, being in the military, has to stand guard for racist people if they want to decide to like march through Washington, D.C. And I commend him for it, because I love Jesus, but I don't love people that much. But that's something I always have to say to him. And I guess like the one reason I wanted to have you guys on here is I understand what you guys are going through. Obviously, not to the complete level because different strokes for different folks, but the PTSD you're starting to develop, this fear of looking just the way you look. I empathize and I understand, and I can understand how incredibly lonely that must feel going through this. And I'm one thing I also want to say is like I know this gets annoying to say, but I'm also in this weird place where I haven't necessarily, as a Black American, had somebody that I could say like, oh, they don't look like me, but they probably understand me more than anybody else right now. I'm sorry that this is happening. It's terrible. Honestly, it's terrible. The fact that like I don't wish like what I go through and like people that look like me and look like Nate and G and half of Jonathan. Like I don't wish the pain that we go through on anybody. It just sucks that more people are having to deal with the hurtful side of hatred. It's unfortunate, and I'm sorry you guys have to go through that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for what's your name? Blasian?
We call him Jonathan on this chat, but yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know your name. All right. How do you guys feel sometimes when I go out? I feel like people always predict what my race is. Like, are you black and white? Are you Mexican? Then people sometimes will start talking like Spanish to me. How does that feel? Because I feel like, does it even matter? Does it matter if I even if I was white, what's wrong with that? And if someone would actually ask, like, are you all Mexican? I'm like, does that matter? What does it matter if what my race is? Does that happen to you guys too? When people would ask, like, are you this? Are you that?
That happens to me a lot, but it happened so much that I started thinking like, why is this happening? So I had to look at the context in which it was happening. And usually it's, again, like we were talking about the whole colorism thing earlier, right? So usually people would see me as this cute light-skinned guy because they assumed that I was all Black. Then they would tell me, oh, well, you must be mixed with something, as if to say that if I were full Black, I wouldn't look the way I look, right? Because they find me attractive or whatever. And then it would be affirmed because I'd be like, yeah, I'm half Filipino. And they're like, yeah, I know. That's why you got them sexy eyes, or that's why you're so light and bright, like you light bright. Like, and of course, like, especially by today's standards, but even back then when I was in college or high school, it wasn't right, but I wasn't calling folks out back then. But by today's standards, you would be like, what the hell? Like, sure. At the same time, like, I'll be on the subway platform here in New York and someone will walk up to me and start speaking Spanish, asking questions for directions. And like, I just understand that the world makes assumptions. And you have to understand that we live in a world that is based on assumptions and looks and of all this stuff. So you being another Blasian, I really encourage you particularly to join Blasians Unite on Facebook if you're on Facebook, because a lot of Blasians come there and we process our identities and share stories about exactly what you just asked. But yeah, just to answer your question, the world sees in binaries sometimes, and they don't know the right way to ask things, and they don't know, or the quote right. More people are more sensitive to certain things, so the world defaults at insensitive and binary.
Yeah, and I think this pandemic, in a lot of ways, on top of the fact that we had 45 as president, you find out how people really, really are when things aren't going their way. Pandemic, jobs are closed down, gyms are closed. They can't get is there a vegan smoothie? They can't get their vegan smoothies. Like, I don't know. Like, people, when things aren't going their way, you get to see what they're like. She's looking at me like, is there vegan smoothies? Yes, no.
There's vegan everything. You can literally eat anything vegan.
What the hell? Okay. But the reason I say that is we're in a time where, as Malcolm X said, the chickens have come home to roost. You got no choice but to get everybody's like worst version of themselves, and their worst version of themselves, you might involve finding out that they have a hatred towards a certain group of people or have certain biases and everything like that. But getting back to this whole otherizing and this otherizing, we're doing otherizing more than humanizing. what do you guys, if there's one thing you could suggest that might, help closing the gap but amongst communities, as far as that, what's keeping us apart, what do you guys think? I mean, individually, you guys can go around the screen. What do you think the next step is to closing that gap in?
Honestly, just stuff like this, just the conversation. I know, and I wanted to say something earlier, like you made the comment, like I wasn't sure how this was going to go. It might get tense. Well, certain things and certain conversations, they need to be intense. They need to be tense. But as long as, and voices might get raised, but as long as the you walk into it with the purpose of gaining an understanding and learning, whether or not emotion gets involved in any conversation you have for a long period of time. If you talk to somebody for more than 5 minutes, some type of emotional connection or emotional transfer of energy is going to happen. So don't be afraid to have a conversation with somebody because you're afraid you might offend them or they might offend you. Because if you do that, then you're going to continue walking around not understanding that. Because personally, just this conversation taught me, I didn't know that Asians weren't a thing in Asia. I didn't know that they, like, I'm serious. I didn't know that they didn't call themselves that. Like, I just, because I've been to Korea, I've been stationed in Korea, but I didn't interact with the locals that much to know that no, they consider themselves, I'm Korean, I'm Japanese, Filipino, um, Indonesian, wherever they're from. I didn't know that the division between those countries was as deeply rooted as it is. So now I understand a little bit more where, okay, I could understand why somebody who's not of that ethnicity might feel a certain type of way when somebody says, oh, are you this or are you that? And that's just from a conversation and from listening. So just having the conversation and be willing to listen, which is the key part of the conversation, is actually listening, not the talking part. And I think a lot of people mess up where they go into a conversation like, oh, well, let me get my points off so they know where I'm coming from, when you should go into the conversation trying to get understanding and be more willing to listen than to speak.
Who's next? Come on.
I can go. I think that what you brought up is a really great point too. Like listening to people, especially if we don't agree with them, which can be so difficult because like I look at someone who supports Trump, I'm like, what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, come on. But like, I think it's really dangerous if we just look at them and like look down at them, like, look, like you're so dumb. Like, I can't believe you support Trump. Like, that's when it really gets dangerous, and that's when like radicalization and things happen like that. I think another thing that I also want to expand on is understanding our own implicit biases and our own prejudices, because we really we can't like force other people to work on themselves, but what we can do is like understand where we're coming from, what narratives that we've internalized from growing up as a person of color within this country. And like all of us, like if we've grown up here, we all have internalized some sort of stories about like some narratives that we heard about stereotypes and about the people who look like us. So just understanding those narratives, understanding how that's influenced the way that we view the world, understanding that that's possibly influenced the way that other people understand the world too.
Who's next? The mic is hot.
I guess I'll go.
Okay. Can you say it with a little more enthusiasm? My goodness. Like
I'm ready. Let's go. All right. So as my mind, I love this idea that we're all talking about what we have experienced, how we feel about this, and about how Asians and how Black people feel about it. Because I think this is a great start. Because another thing, people always say actions are louder than words, but sometimes you have to explain about how you feel. Why are we so hurt about how we are treated? And I feel like this is a great start for us to explain about how we feel inside. And you're actually making us think of like, oh my gosh, wow, I always thought I was the only one that I actually felt this way. And I love it, that I love what we're doing. And I feel like by this start, I could probably like reach out to my other Black friends, and we could all start together and be a whole entire group, so we can grow better as a group, because we all need organization and how we could all grow this better. Because obviously, with this racism, to make it stop, it's not like we can only be the only one.
That's true. Let's see. Jonathan, Sarah. Which one of y'all gonna talk next?
What was the question for this segment?
Okay, so for this segment, I'm asking, like, what do you think is for, this is a personal thing, but what do you think is the next step, or what do you think a practical step to closing this gap of division that's happening amongst us, our communities? Like, what's something that you would suggest that is to help have us come closer as a people?
Join the Black and Asian Associate, the Facebook group that we built with 3,000 members, 4,000 members now. But seriously, find a space. It could be that group where Black people and Asian people are occupying and discussing. That's the only way that we're going to close that gap, is by physically and even digitally physically occupying a space with each other, like this panel or like that group, and hashing it out and educating and sharing experience, point blank, period. If you don't have that communication, it's not going to work. You can copy paste communication across any problem, and it's going to fix it. Work, relationship, life, communication is key.
And come on, my dog's getting freaked out because I'm drumming on the table. Like,
I think. Can you restate the question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so I'm so kidding. You're fine. So what do you think is a practical suggestion? Shut up. Now I got my dog's attention. But what is a practical suggestion as far as, like, you think that is a good idea, or more so, what's personal to you that you think that will help bring us closer together as a people?
I think we need to understand that there is racism in every community, but we cannot judge and blame one community entirely on its own. There are horrible people in itself all over the world who are going to do bad things, and it is okay to call them out on their actions, but to blame it on an entire community itself, or a race or the race, it's just, you're digging yourself a deeper hole. You're putting a wedge between the communities even more. We don't need to be divided. We already are, so.
I agree. So I guess, like, the only thing I wanted to say to everybody, that first, thank you guys for coming on here tonight. Because, like I said, this is the first time I've ever talked to my sister G on screen. I talked, you know, me and Nate, we're both Knicks fans, so we suffer from depression, so we talk a lot. But, you know, for the rest of the people that came on the panel today, you know, it was a leap of faith in having this conversation. I first want to say thank you for, you know, blessing me with this time, because I'm sitting here, I'm still gonna definitely look back over this and, like, you know, make sure I didn't miss anything, especially since Satan tried to attack us through technology. That was nuts. And I just think maybe we just weren't doing a good job of muting ourselves, but that's besides the point. I just wanted to say thank you for you guys coming on here. And, you know, and I keep saying it, this could have went a lot worse than it actually did. Like, I don't know why I get so paranoid when it comes to talking to strangers. I'm like, somebody's gonna come on here and be like, F BLM, F those Asian people. And I'm like, oh no, I'm the moderator, I can't have this happen. Like, but I just wanted to say thank you for you guys coming on here. I'm pretty sure this won't be the last time we all have this conversation, or just conversations in general after meeting like this on screen. But thank you. I mean, like, I can't say it enough. Thank you for opening my eyes to certain areas, especially not knowing that you guys don't call each other. But then again, I assume if you're in China, you don't call China Chinese food. So I guess you would do the same thing in Asia when you see Asian people. Got it. Gotcha. Anyway, but thank you guys. I don't know if you guys had any other closing thoughts by chance.
Hood
This
Asians
isn't
exist.
really a
They're not.
Good.
So, it was also going to put because I do know Mai from TikTok, and I think she shouted me out and over a video about Hood Asians. So I was going to close with Hood Asians exist, and you got to know the difference between an Asian that speaks African American vernacular English naturally and an Aquafina.
Got it. G, you were saying something?
Okay, so it was just like a little quick question. Do you think it would be better if I invite more people to this group?
Talking about John's group he was telling you about?
Yes.
That's a question.
Oh, definitely. If they're black or Asian or Blasian or mixed black or mixed Asian with anything else, they can be in it.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. Anybody got anything else? No? All right, I'll say goodnight to the people on the internet real quick. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I am so sorry for the technical issues earlier. I don't know what the heck that was. I'm not gonna put the blame on Jonathan because he honestly helped bring a lot of people to streaming this, which is a good thing. So I'm not gonna blame it on him. I'm gonna blame it on the fact that I live in the boondocks. So we'll go with that. Maybe there was a UFO that flew over my house. I don't really know. But thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you for those that were being peaceful in the comment section. And you know what? Even thank you to the ignorant ones because now you're blocked from my channel. So you just saved me time and a lot of less frustration I gotta deal with. And my dog just hopped on my coffee table. Oh my god. So I'm not kidding. I don't know why he did that. He's acting up because there's company around. But thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. This is not gonna be the last time we have conversations like this. I'm pretty sure if I hit up any of these lovely people I met on screen, they're welcome to come back anytime. And please, hit them up, follow them. They got their socials in their screen names. So definitely hit them up.
We were supposed to put our socials on our screen names. Sorry.
Well, it's the end of the show now, so.
Anyway, it's okay. I'm not gonna edit this out because it's great for television. Thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Always remember, oh my goodness, you see this? Always remember you are beautiful, blessed, and beloved. My name is Kid Casper. Good night to you.